Roast Beef here, Jigs and Bigs. Another amazing show lined up for you guys. We have something crazy lined up. We are in it. We're in winter right now. We all know it's a little bit insane. This time of year can be really difficult, so we're rolling out with a roundtable discussion series. And today we're talking about boat versus kayak versus bank fishermen. We've got folks from all different sort of positions in that equation, and we're going to have a good conversation about it, get down to it. We got some really great guests that you're not going to want to miss out on. Plus, we also have an interview segment this week. John Scungio of JCS Marine joins Bobby Roast Beef in the beef seat. You're not going to want to miss it, guys. We got a great show lined up. Go ahead, grab yourself something to enjoy. This one's a bit different. Buckle up and get ready. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys right after this. We had such an amazing time with this roundtable. It was so good. Couple of things though before we get started. First and foremost, we just want to say to everybody from the show who is out in California, we have a small listening audience in California, and we just want to say, hey, we're hoping everything is going okay and that you are all right with this situation with the wildfires and everything. So we just want to wish you guys our best and at least acknowledge that we know you guys are going through some shit, and that kind of sucks. But we have an amazing show for you this week, folks. We had mentioned it months ago, the idea of doing a series of these roundtable discussions where, we put a topic on the table, we get a bunch of people in line that have a little something to say about it, and we mix up folks that are friends to the show or past guests or experts in a field maybe, and as well as some of our jig heads. We put the invite out there as well. We had one hell of a crew. Let's go through who you're going to hear today. We had the one and only Dave Shade. Now, Dave Shade is an absolute hammer in the multi-species scavenger hunt series. He's a guy where if he's in the in for that month, that you've got some significant competition lined up against you. So Dave Shade is with us. He is going to give a little bit of an insight. He does a lot of bank fishing. And then we got Debo. Debo has been a guest host on the show. He's been in the beef seat a long time ago. And Debo it was an interesting sort of role to fit because for a long time, Debo was primarily bank angling. He got into a boat periodically here and there, and he had his own John boat for a while, but now he's a kayak guy. And it's interesting to get that take on the transition, getting, off of the bank after being there for so long. So we have a great conversation with him. We got John Carter with us. John Carter is a longtime listener and a close friend in the circle of the Central Mass contingency. John has some great feedback and some stories to share with us. Feedback, actually. You guys will hear why that's funny in just a bit. But we have a great conversation as well. And then we got the one and only John Hagens. Now, John Hagens almost 100% fishes from the bank, and he's an absolute monster. When he's out there, he is catching beasts, and we dive into it with him. He shares his input. Of course, we got Jay Manning, one of our longtime jig heads with us, and ironically, as Jay Manning was making that transition from being primarily a kayak angler into a boat angler, I actually purchased his kayak, which is in the backyard right behind me right here. I've still got it. So we have Jay in the house. It's great to get that interest. Plus, myself, I'm in there, and we got who the fuck is Joe Brown. Joe delivers a great sort of perspective from like, oh wow, this is like the boat with the bells and the whistles and everything else. So it's kind of a fun little conversation. We go on for a little bit. I hope you guys are ready for it. We're going to take a quick, we're not even going to take a break. Let's just go ahead. We'll get right into it after this. All right, hey guys, what's up? Bobby Roast Beef here. You might notice that I have some friends over here on the side of me. We're going to be doing a roundtable discussion today. That's what this episode primarily is. But we'll go ahead and we'll jump right in and kind of do some talking here. Let's go ahead and welcome, of course, the co-host of the show, the one and only. Who the fuck is Joe Brown? Joe, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? Look at all these fresh faces.
This is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute a bunch of mics as we go along here.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go around. We're going to have a conversation today regarding, and I'm going to be honest, I when we were throwing around the idea of various roundtable topics, this one here was what I thought my gut reaction was.
This is the dumbest thing we're gonna ever talk about right here.
And it's boat versus kayak versus bank. But I know everybody's got an opinion. So I think as a show, this is actually going to be really, really, really fantastic. Let's go ahead and I did want to kind of say, go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. And one specific thing I wanted to ask all of our guests, and we're going to start with Dave Shade. I wanted to ask everybody to kind of give a ratio of how they fish, like what percentage of it is bank, what percentage of it is kayak, and what percentage of it is boat. Because generally, I think the majority of our guests here, and probably, I wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say every angler has that ratio, whether it's fishing from somebody else's boat, fishing on a kayak primarily, or only fishing, specific situations from bank fishing. So we'll go ahead, we'll welcome Dave Shade. He is just an absolute beast in the multi-species world, especially when it comes to the multi-species scavenger hunts. Dave, how's things?
Man, they're good. They're real good.
Very good, man. How's things? So what you been up to lately? Enjoying winter?
Enjoying the winter, right? Trying to get out when I can, trying to find, open water when there's not safe ice. And
yep, for sure.
Trying to find safe ice when there's not open water.
Now, what is your ratio for fishing as far as bank to kayak versus boat fishing?
95% shore.
Okay.
5% boat. My father has a boat, and I go out with him maybe a dozen times a year.
Oh, there you go. But you fish a lot. You're like me. You're out there 3-4 days a week.
Yeah. A minimum twice a week. Minimum.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then pretty much every other Sunday, I'm doing a 12-hour day.
Yeah, that's a bit much. That's a bit much.
I have no problem being out there. That's just me, man. I would rather be out there walking around in the woods than sitting on the couch.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I'm not against that either. Let's go ahead. We'll move in with our next guest in here for this roundtable. We got John Hagens. John Hagens, Ohio's own, the original Buckeye, to be honest.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, another absolute multi-species monster.
Yeah. How's it going, everybody?
Let's talk about your ratio of bank fishing to versus boat versus kayak. Like, what percentage does it work out for you?
Hey, I'm going to tell you and be honest. It's 100% bank for me.
100% bank. All right.
100% bank. Ever since the debacle with Cabela's,
that's
with my recent FTG.
Yep.
I kind of put the kayak on a hold for a little while, but
fair enough.
It doesn't stop me from getting out. So.
No, absolutely not. I didn't think so. Next up, we have a face that you guys have seen on the show a number of times. We've got Debo. So we've got some range here. How you doing, Debo? How's
good?
Things? How have you been enjoying this lovely weather?
Good. Yeah, I was just saying I didn't get a chance to clean up kind of a disaster zone down here from filming and stuff, so I apologize. Just got in from ice fishing. We've got safe ice, so it was good. Caught, I don't know, probably 6,000 bluegill that were all about 4 inches. So that was fun.
Yeah.
They just won't leave your stuff alone.
Were you jigging or were you catching them on tip-ups?
No, I've never done the tip-up stuff.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've got a hut and everything. I like to be warm, so I just curl up in my hut and put a basketball game on. And it was good. Caught a few bass. I had lost like a 3-pounder at the hole, so that was disappointing. But yeah, otherwise good. It's interesting that you say this because it's changed. I know Dave said that before. Mine has changed over the years. Most recently, last year, I got a kayak. So mine was probably like 20% boat, 10% bank, and 70% kayak last year.
And previous to that, it was a different sort of animal. And that's one of the reasons why I specifically was like, I got to have Debo involved in this because you're newly into the kayak sort of game.
Yes.
And you got yourself one hell of a boat. And you've even broken your cherry as far as dumping that son of a bitch. Which
that sucked balls. That was a $3,000 mistake. I lost 5 combos, blew my GoPro. Lost some tackle, so it was a costly error.
Oh yeah,
now I've got every damn thing in there tethered. So if it can move, it's tethered.
That's the smart way to go. We do have one of our panelists here who has experienced something very similar, loss in a major way. But before we get to him, we're going to jump in and we're going to talk to Jay Manning over here. Jay Manning, no stranger, a jighead from like day frickin' one. Jay, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing all right. You know, we're going to have ourselves a good conversation, kind of dive into it and talk about it. How are things with the new baby? You getting any sleep?
Yeah, we're doing great. A couple months old now and starting to get some sleep. Got out ice fishing today. And
nice.
My friends were like, you're out here. How'd you get out here today?
Yeah.
Well, my wife's amazing. So
how many inches of ice do you guys have out where you're at?
It was a small pond. We had about 6.
There you go. That's great.
Over in Leicester. So I think Joe would know. It's a little version of a bigger pond, as you might say.
Gotcha. I see where you're going with that, and that's clever. So let's talk about your sort of ratio for fishing, like, recently. What is the relationship boat fishing versus kayak fishing versus bank fishing? I'm pretty sure where kayak fishing sits for you recently, because I still have your old kayak in my backyard.
Yeah, I quickly realized that I don't always want to exercise and fish. And so I got my boat in about 2020, and I've been about 99% boat since then.
Yeah.
Just get so little time out there and mostly on lash away, to be honest, because I just kind of sneak out every time I get a chance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm on the boat.
No, that's awesome. And it's a great fishery, too, out where you're at. I've bumped into you before out there.
You can usually find me there.
Oh, yeah. So now
it's funny because there's been times where like he'll stay out there like well past dark, and like for some reason Meg will be out and about, and she'll drive by the boat ramp. She'll be like, "Hey, you wanna text Jay? Like his truck's still there at the boat ramp.
I'm sure he's alive."
It's like,
fair enough. Well, Joe, while we have you on, why don't you explain your ratio boat to bank to kayak fishing? What's it like for you typically?
Well, I haven't touched a kayak in a long time.
It's been a bit.
I was in the kayak game for a minute, and then I did the same thing Debo did, and I flipped that bitch and lost a bunch of money worth of stuff, and I was like, this ain't for me. And next thing you know, I was in a bass boat, but I would say like 99.5% in the boat, and then once in a while I'll go dick around on the bank. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And actually, you were one of the few people that, because you had a boat at the time that you got your kayak, and I think part of the reason was like all of like the circle of like the hooks at Hoodlum Pro staff, we were all fishing in kayaks, and it just made sense to do it at the time. But like I can totally see where like it was between.
I mean, I'll be 100% honest. Like I miss having the kayak just because. They're only because of 2 ponds that I can't put my boat in. You really can't bank fish it either. That are like just stellar ponds by me. I've told you about them. Just like it's those ponds you drop into that you're gonna catch 3s and 4s all day long. That just nobody fishes.
Because exactly. There's zero pressure. It's always a good thing. And that's the thing. It's funny. So like I'll bring it over, to myself. As far as my relationship with a bank versus boat versus kayak, I'm about 70% bank or 70% in my boat now, obviously, because it's new. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to, utilize that as a tool to make content and things like that. I'm visualizing in the future it'll probably drop down to about 50% boat, and the other 2 are currently, like, with that being 70% of my time on the boat, I would say 15% is bank and 15% is kayak. And more or less kayak fishing for me is like Joe just said, like those bodies of water where getting my boat in and out just doesn't make any sense for whenever either maybe the ramp just sucks or it's so small it's just not worth it. It would be a better use of my time to get more day out of it than to just drop the kayak and kind of scoot around all over the place. And then bank fishing for me is more seasonal than anything, but there are places that I fish that are legally you have to fish by the bank, and I love those places, but like oddly enough this year I haven't been there since I bought the boat. It's just the way it is. So let's go ahead and dive in and kind of start the conversation here, guys. Boat versus bank versus kayak. Joe, how do you think that we should start this? Do you think we should have everybody that's in a boat or everybody who's primarily bank start?
Let's start bank.
We'll start bank. All right. So we've got this actually kind of works out really well. Like I said, the one group that's a little bit, I don't want to say not represented here, but we don't have anybody who exclusively fishes via kayak. Like exclusively, you know what I mean? And there was a couple of people that asked, which is odd because I feel like there's so many folks out there that fish exclusively in a kayak. For the vast majority, they did not want to be part of this conversation, which I thought was interesting, but it is what it is. I did consider throwing the invite over to the one and only Sean the Fisherman, but I know exactly how that conversation was going to go. He was going to talk about kayaks and tell us how we're all idiots, but it is what it is, you know. And that wasn't exactly, I was like, that's a little bit skewy right there. But so why don't we go ahead? Why don't we start? Actually, we'll start with Dave. Dave is actually, you know what? John said he was 100% kayak or 100% boat. What am I talking about? 100% bank angler. So, John, why don't you go ahead and start the conversation for us as far as like, why is it that you appreciate bank fishing so much?
I think it's a lot to do with some of the places I can get to where boats can't.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I fish a lot of backwaters and creeks and stuff, and then having the ability to get to some of the, because like I literally fish mostly creeks and rivers, and be able to get to some of the like the shallow waters that the boats can't, and being able to fish, you know, the backwater eddies that, you know, you're not gonna not even get a kayak into. And for me, a lot of those, you know, I catfish a lot. So a lot of those are choke points for me to be able to get in and out quietly and not deal with all the boat traffic. I have had issues with wrecked kayakers in the past where I've set up under a bridge and I had a guy with a bunch of folks come under and just, he saw me there and decided to start pounding on his kayak with his oar. And just to make the echo. Yeah, he was a dick. And the spot that I was fishing was literally, I mean, I had about a 5 foot wide channel that, you know, fish would have to travel through, and I was set up there for the night. And he just kind of ruined it all.
That's tough.
Outside of that, the only issue I usually have is the beavers that decide to be assholes.
Yep. Oh, and there's no lack of that.
No, none.
I would say, I think you said the magic word though there, creek. When you're fishing, like creek is one of those words where like it depending on how you're referencing it, like it could be a small stream of water that connects a couple of different, like I think that's how I think of creeks primarily. When people say a creek, like you get into a creek that's feeding a large lake, then you've got a creek that runs through that lake. But I think for that style of like what we're talking about is really like skinny water. Like bank fishing is you're at no disadvantage there because you can reach so much of it by walking up and down the bank. If you can cast across it, it might not be ideal, but if you can cover all the water. And then you've got situations where I think that even in a kayak, it really depends on what kind of kayak we're talking about here. And that's one of the things that I wanted to throw out there was that, you know, I mean, I've never owned what I would consider a truly agile kayak. My kayaks have always been outfitted more for like lugging gear and being able to have options with me for whatever I may encounter. My first kayak, the Ascend, was 12 and a half feet long. It was huge. And it just maneuvering that in a creek is a little bit more difficult than if you're, you know, in a 10-foot kayak that's a little bit more sleek, being able to get around. But I think that's the magic word right there. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the body of water. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, on the flip side with that, when I hit the big rivers, I have the advantage of fishing in faster water where some of the boats can't come, especially with the big dams down on the Ohio. You know, a lot of those have warning signs. They can't come up in the tail race. Yep. And you know, we have the ability to get down on the rocks and get right in it. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was getting cleaning the house on some sauger, and same area, we get hybrid stripers in there, you know, 9 to 15 pounds, and you know the boat guys can't access it, so it's kind of a free for all for the bank guys. Oh yeah. And do you fish any spillways or anything like that? Because there's no vessel that's going to help you there. Yeah, no. The spillways around here. You really can't coast up to them in Ohio. Most of those are flood controlled dams anyway, and most of them they don't allow boats in the area.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, we have John Carter just joined in here. So, hold on, John. You're gonna have to pop your headphones in. You're gonna have to pop your headphones in. I'm gonna mute your mic for the moment. Go ahead and do that because we're getting some feedback from you. But there we go. Still, there we go. I'm gonna mute you again, buddy. Let's see. All right. So, John, I think what we're going to do is we're going to pop in. We're going to have Dave jump in and talk about his bank fishing experience. Dave, how about you? Walk us through like how you typically fish and why bank fishing is your your preference lately.
I think I'm in the same boat as John.
Yep.
You can get to places that boats and kayaks might just not be able to fish, like the smaller creeks, the smaller rivers, things like that, back bays, whatever. But another thing that I like is even if you're coming up on a pond, say that somebody can fish by a kayak, you're coming up into a spot, into an area totally silent. I mean, when you pull up in a boat or a kayak, inevitably there's going to be some noise, whether it be the trolling motor, your paddles, your pedals on your kayak. There's going to be some noise there. The fish are going to know you're coming for the most part. If you come up on a spot from the bank, so long as you do it nice and quiet, and you don't just run up to the water, the water's edge, you'd be surprised what you can walk up on. Back in May, I caught a big bowfin that was pretty much at my feet because I snuck up on it. Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons why I like the bank. I mean, I do fish from a boat with my father. He's got a boat. So when we go out, we go bass fishing out of the boat. But it's another reason too, is I just don't have the means to own a boat, really, to be honest with you. I live in an apartment. I don't have a place to park it. I don't, so.
That for sure changes. Yeah, that for sure has to be weighed into the equation, because there's certain times where, like, if you're like, I just don't have the property to be able to put something, like even right now, I've got a kayak trailer and a boat trailer on my property. I have a 1/4 acre where I live. Like, it's a mess. We're talking about getting a
parking spot. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, when you factor all that together, it's insane. So that's just absolutely brutal. Now, as far as, like, I've seen you out fishing before, and you fish bodies of water. Like, although actually I take that back, because you're out there and you fish it all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do a lot of pond hopping. So depending on what I'm chasing, I might go to this pond. If I don't find it from there, I got to go to this one, or I got to go to that one.
Yep.
So I'm usually not fishing one body of water. I'm fishing an area.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I'm fishing a big body of water that's got trails that will go around with multiple spots, or if I bushwhack it, or if I'm fishing a river where I can go up and down the river, then I'll do that. But normally I'm pond hopping is really what I'm doing.
No, that makes sense. So, let's go ahead and this is great. We haven't had a screen like this in forever. A lot of folks in here. I think with John Carter, we are still having some issues with his audio. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mute everybody else, myself included, and I'm going to ask John a question and open up his mic so that we can get his answer. So, John, if you could tell us about your relationship, boat fishing versus kayak fishing versus bank fishing. Like, do you do a certain percentage of one versus the other? What does that formula look like for you?
Early on, yeah. I started off bank fishing with Mr. J. Manning.
Yep.
And, back when we were like 12, we used to ride our bikes all over the place.
Yep.
Fishing off the shore. And then we upgraded to John boats and got vehicles and tossed them in the back and, drove wherever we wanted, and just hit small ponds. Then we upgraded to, 20 years later, we all got boats and kayaks, and I think the whole kayak thing is good. I have a kayak that it hurts my back. Not really meant for fishing, but for those ponds that are a little less accessible and aren't as boat friendly. I think that's where those come in. How do I fix the feedback, Bob? Because I'm not really that tech savvy. So if I do have Bluetooth headphones as well.
I'm not hearing the feedback right now.
Okay.
Let's see if it comes back, but it seems like it's all right. I don't know if you change something. Unfortunately, I can only see so much of the configuration, so we'll see if we can open up everybody's mic and if we're good. The headphones are definitely a big help. There we go. There's Jay Manning. There we go. I think we're all right. I'm not hearing it come back anymore, so that's good.
Sweet.
All right.
I'll take it.
I'll try not to move too much.
No, I think you're all right. I think this will be pretty good. So, let's see. Who in here is primarily fishing a kayak lately? I think that's Debo. So we'll move over here and see. So Debo, now, what's your experience been as you've gotten into the kayak? Even actually, you fished out of a John boat previously. Do you feel like there's a big difference between those two?
Yes and no. So like Dave was saying, the accessibility thing. So that was the biggest thing for me, was being able to store the boat, park the boat, because it's like a car dealership out here in front of my house. Yeah. And just getting it out, and sometimes you'd have to ask people to move it. It was just such a pain. Whereas the Yak, I throw it in the back of my truck. I can go wherever. I also had a crappy, I only had it was like an 11.5 foot John boat. Yep. So it was ancient, and it had the crappy little trailer with the small wheels. Well, you're not supposed to go over 55 mile an hour or whatever. Yep. So it was just a pain. The only thing that was good about it is I feel, even though it was a crappy little 11 footer, it was still more stable than my kayak. Yeah. So that's only thing. So I don't ever even stand in my kayak. Sitting down, I'm fine. I just don't even mess with standing. It's funny that you say that, because I feel the same way. I got my kayak, and the first time I took it out, I stood up in it just to see if I could do it. But when it comes to fishing, I never stand in it. I never do. I feel like I can do 95% of the stuff that I generally do from a seated position. Now, granted, my kayak seat is high. Now, you've got a Slayer, right? A native Slayer. Mm-hmm. I've got a Titan, which has a little bit more width to it. And I mean, you're taller than I am, which gives you, I have a lower center of gravity. That definitely helps. But I've stood up and stood on one leg on my kayak. And that's something that I think we need to reference too, is that you can say kayak fishing, but that can be something totally different. Like Todd Sefton had commented in here. He goes, I fished my sit-in, I throw and go all last year, never touched my big kayak. Moving it and launching it's just a giant pain in the ass. Even within the world of kayak fishing, there are so many different variables, and different people want different stuff. If you're a river angler, like when I was at the Kayak Adventure Series down at the Susquehanna, I'm talking to all these guys that are kayak fishing, and I knew 100% that my kayak was not the right kayak to bring down there. So I brought the Lund. So it's if I'm going to do any fishing, I'm just, because I wasn't entered in the tournament or anything, I'm I'm just going to find a spot and go fish. The weather thought otherwise. That sucked. But, even within the world of kayak fishing, it's not every kayak is one you can throw over your shoulder and just bring in through the woods. And then you got to talk about gear storage and everything like that. So let's get into some of the boat guys right here. Let's go ahead and we'll start with Jay Manning. Jay, why don't you jump in and we'll talk a little bit about your experience fishing from a boat versus when you were in a kayak and all that. What do you feel are the pros and the cons?
Well, I think first, let me just say, I think when, Johnny and I, like I said, we grew up with, just scrapping it together. And when I see someone on the bank, I always check in, because I think my heart, there's a lot that you can just get connected with the lake. And for sure. So when I see the guys on the bank, I'm always, they're like, nice boat. I'm like, man, I know your game and I get it. And I'm with you guys. But yeah, and then just one thing on small boats, I think I want to say this, anyone who has one's going to be mad, but if you're kind of not a kayak guy because your balance isn't so great like me, Johnny and I always rock with the old crawdads, which are the Coleman plastic boats.
Yep.
Unbelievably stable. If you're looking for a boat and you want to get into one and you're not sure, just get a crawdad and get one of your buddies, and you can get that thing into most places. So, I think the boat, like you said, the gear and being able to just go, right, is the big thing, and having stuff set up the right way. I think if you're looking at a boat, really look at that. Look at how many rods you think you need and triple it, because the reality is when you have a boat, it's like golf clubs, right? And it's all about saving time. And I think for most people, when you're in a kayak or on shore, it takes so much effort to get there. There's a lot of pre-work to figure out your 5 or 6 spots you're going to hit. Whereas in a boat, the game changes.
Yep.
You can hit 100, right? And if you have live scope, especially, you can look at thousands of fish and not catch any, right? And so as we get older, I think just, taking that time, making it the most efficient we can. And then what can I get in 3 hours, right? That's my new game with kids, right?
Exactly.
I need to get out there. And then when I drag it back into the driveway, I don't cover as often as I should. I'm not going to lie. And that's why I got an aluminum boat, right? That's why I did it. So I'm not,
I totally get that, man.
Yeah. Anyway.
It is wild. Let's go before we go and talk to the guy with the boat of all the boats. I'll jump in and give my feedback here, and I think my take on it is actually a little bit different than most boat owners. The main reason why I got a boat, and I'm going to put all of our faces on here just because, the main reason why I got into a boat specifically is because of one thing you can do on a bank, but it's a challenge. You cannot do in a kayak. And that's fish with other people, which is my favorite thing. For me, it was about taking that journey. And I'll use an example. I have a friend that I've talked about on the show a number of times. He's actually been in a couple of my YouTube videos. And we go back a long time, my buddy Jimmy. And he's a character. He is not like an angler by trade. However, I feel like because of some of the experiences he's had on the boat, and he would never turn me down if I was like, hey, he calls me up and says, hey, you want to hang out? And I'm like, I'm going fishing. I'll take some gear for you. Join me. He'd be glad to do it. We've probably fished about a dozen times. Can we fish some great spots that just as a bank angler, it's challenging. Like you're only going to be able to move so many spots or whatever. And I would, occasionally catch some fish, but it was tricky. He had never, ever hooked up all the time that we had gone out and fished. And then the first day we go out to the boat, we were up at Big Alum. And we're out there. I was throwing around some BFS stuff. I hooked him up with like a small swim bait on one of my spinning combos. And I think he caught 4 or 5 fish. And he was like, get the frick out of here. Like, how is this even possible? And it's that part alone that I think makes, like, if I had to choose a superior method to fish, it's that, because it is the greatest. It's sum of everything. The ability to carry your gear, the ability to fish with other folks, and the ability to get where you need to go. Now, it does come with a price tag, obviously, but that price tag is very variable. You don't always have to be that guy. You know what I mean? You don't have to be the guy with the mortgage payment for the boat. So Joe, walk us through, and I think you actually have great input for owning a boat of the pedigree that you've got. So go ahead and kind of walk us through your take on it.
Yeah, it's wicked, quick, and easy. I'm just wicked financially irresponsible.
I love it.
That's it.
Fuck.
Hell yeah.
No, so man, I have aspirations. I have things I want to do. I'm in a position to where, thankfully I had the ability to kind of, get that. I would be 100% honest with you. I saw those icons come out, and I never thought in a million years I'd own one. But on top of that, it's just, man, kind of like all of us. We all, I grew up. We didn't have a boat. I was fishing the bank. Mm-hmm. My cousin and I would, walk around town, man, and just hit each bank. We'd hit the local, our dads were members of the local fishing game. So we'd go hit that pond and every pond in between on the, as we walk miles and miles with our backpack or our bicycles with our backpacks and fishing rods. And then, when I was younger, I spent a little time in Florida when my dad relocated for work, and I did a little bit of salt stuff there from the shore. Really started to enjoy it, and then At one point, my dad got like a little aluminum John boat that we started to fish out of, and just kind of being able to get into that, like we talked about just different areas of different lakes, there's benefits to each one, like the bank guys, like Dave was talking about. I can't sneak up on a 12-pound bowfin, you know what I mean? Because I got the trolling motor. Who knows what the hell he's listening to with the live scope and everything. Sounds like a friggin' submarine ping coming in on him. But I can't do that. And so that's a huge benefit. And where the benefit I have in the boat versus, a bank angler is I like to fish a lot of deep water. I love fishing deep water to where obviously, if I'm in the middle of the lake, I find some structure in the middle of a lake, you need that boat to get there, or kayak. Even with a kayak, you got to have some electronics and know that one tree is sitting in this random spot in this lake that just holds donks all year long. And if you don't have electronics, you'll never even know it was there. But man, it's like the multi-species game, like for some reason, if I'm going multi-species, which I don't really do anymore, but like for instance, when I go fishing up in the Salmon River up in Pulaski, New York, it's weird because like
salmon
sometimes
snagging.
What's that?
Salmon snagging.
Yeah, right. So it's weird. So like I have spots that, we'd take my dad's like 17-foot John bow, whatever it is, and we'd hit that because you can't, they're great holes that you can't get from the bank. But then there's a bunch of spots to where you have to like do some trekking through the woods to get there via the bank. And there's no in between. Like it's either you're on the bank or you're in a boat. You can't really, there's so many fire spots that you can't hit with just one or the other. But man, for me, when it comes to the boat, dude, I enjoy it the most just being able to cover the water. I mean, I can cover miles and miles and miles and miles of water throughout the day, at 70 miles per hour. Obviously, I like a little bit of that adrenaline rush, so when I'm hitting, 3-footers doing, 60 miles an hour, it's just, get a little bit of best of both worlds. But, like the St. Lawrence, dude, like I was going through a tank of gas a day, you know what I mean? Like, that's I'm doing 70-mile runs.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I wouldn't even, that's crazy.
Dude.
That's the thing, right? There's levels for each of these things, I think. And it's like, and all of us kind of I get my aluminum boat and I see Joe go by. I'm like, fuck that guy and his big and I'm flying, and the guy on the shore is like flipping me off. It's like
you guys say all you want about going 70 and everything. When I got 30 and I'm going to my 16-foot aluminum angler, it still gives a tingle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Bobby was on some sketchy water with me in the Skeeter a couple of years, last year or the year before. Yeah.
God, that was scary as shit. I won't bring my boat there. I'm like, let's wait till like April when the water levels are crazy high upriver.
Yeah,
and we'll be a little bit better. But
so like in the end, like so when I'm doing like the salmon stuff or even like the steelhead, steelhead I like to go on a drift boat when I go up there. But salmon I prefer to be on the bank. It's just I can get the spots I have up there. I can get or the better spots I have, or you can only fish them from the bank. You got to do a little trekking. But other than that, dude, my bass game, I love those big bodies of water where you can just cover so many different, spots and so much water throughout the day.
You know what I just realized? Show of hands in here. How many of you guys regularly fish tournaments, like routinely, are in a trail?
Not anymore.
I mean, I'm not counting the scavenger hunt. I'm not counting the slot limit stuff, like all
Mine
that
are
stuff.
mostly catfish tournaments.
Yeah,
so on OCT, I do a lot of OCT tournaments, online catfish tournaments.
You know, and it's funny, John, because like those tournaments, the catfish tournaments, the carp tournaments, like I know that there's like local groups that do this kind of stuff, but like the online tournament platform has opened that up in a huge way where you can fish so many different bodies of water. As long as you've got the right gear to be able to submit your entries, you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah, on the catfish scene, the biggest thing is the pay lakes. Stay away from them. and they don't even want people who pay lake in the groups.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's extremely anti-pay lake. I mean, I am too, because I mean enough. it's a waste of fish, honestly, and it's a waste of. Basically, I'm sure you've heard all the griping about, the it's hard to find trophy catfish anymore around the Ohio River and stuff like that, and they've been busting guys from pay lakes that have been illegally taking more than they're supposed to. And
I see what you're saying. No, when you say pay lakes, you're talking about a lake where you have to like have a license or some kind of special tag in order to be able to access.
You don't even have to have a license. You
really?
literally go in and pay whatever the door fee is, and they have their own separate tournaments, and they're literally hooking these fish over and over again, and then the fish eventually die. And you I'm sure you've seen some of the stories, and
not exactly sportsman-like conduct.
Nah.
So John, maybe you can. I'll come across on like TikTok or Instagram, and I think this is more of like a South thing. Maybe you see it in Ohio. Definitely not something up north, but it's almost like it looks like ponds or lakes that are almost like a fishing game or a sportsman club, and they're putting in trophy.
Yes.
I mean, they're dumping in trophy. Is that the kind of the same thing you're talking about?
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's big in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. Kentucky and Indiana are probably the worst. Ohio is pretty bad too.
Indiana doesn't surprise me, but Kentucky, that's surprising.
So it's kind of like the same idea. So do any of you guys hunt, or have you hunted?
No.
Okay, so those friggin', so those fucking right.
The high fences.
It's like a high gate.
Yeah,
so like high fence hunting.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the same idea of like those farms you can hunt that have like the exotic animals, but in the end they're still just in this giant fucking fenced in area.
They're in a zoo.
That if you want to go, there's that red stag that really is from New England, but you can shoot it if you want, but it's going to cost you $10,000. You know what I mean?
In some cases, they'll actually tag a fish in there and put like a $5,000 tag on that one fish, and if you catch it, that's the payout. And but at the end, it's a lot of robbery of the resources. I mean, you got guys illegally taking more than they're supposed to, and they're crossing state lines to do it.
Sure.
I mean, Ohio doesn't allow commercial catfishing. So these fish are being imported from Kentucky and Alabama and Tennessee.
Okay, I was just gonna ask that. And we're kind of going off the rails here, but So I was curious. When we stock ponds, those are all farm raised fish. So you're telling me that these big ass cats that they're putting in there aren't farm raised? They're pulled from
hoop nets out of the rivers.
Oh, so that's fucked up.
Yeah. Fucked up.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I have this is kind of a random question. It's probably the Four Roses talking right now. But I want to know what everybody's smallest body of water is that they've fished. And then I want to know what they caught and what the method was that they were in there. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to prove a point or anything, but I'm just curious about that. Because when John was talking earlier about fishing creeks, these small bodies of water are unbelievable. So let's kind of jump in there. And if you want to give a couple of examples of smallish bodies of water, that'll be good too. Let's start at the bottom. We'll start with Dave down at the bottom.
All right. Well, one of my favorite places to fish, it's a small creek, southeastern Mass, probably no more than 12 feet across, maybe 3 feet deep. I'm usually pan fishing is what I'm doing. I'm usually going for rock bass. But I've caught 15, 16-inch bass out of this, all on 1-inch paddle tails. So it's, and it's right underneath a little dam.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're talking shin deep water. I go there with a pair of sandals on, pair of shorts, a backpack, and a rod. And I'll just wade my way down the river. And I caught in fact, actually, it was part of the scavenger hunt. I caught a 10-inch rock bass. I think it was a 16-inch bass. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I really love. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's another little pond that's not that far from me. It's actually, it fishes a lot like a kettle pond from the Cape.
Oh yeah.
I don't live on the Cape, but it's very similar to that. But it's only about, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 acres.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I've caught personally some brook trout that were 18 inches, 17 inches. And I've seen a kid pull out a 25-inch brown out of it.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So it's a really good trout fishery. It's only 40, 50 acres, but it's 40, 50 feet deep.
Yeah.
So that one, you can get in there with a kayak. I mean, you could probably get in there with a smaller boat too. It does have a launch, but it's got some really good trails that go around it with a lot of spots, and it's really good for bank angling. So those are two of my favorites that I like to do around here.
No kidding. Okay. So. All right. Jay, what about you? Like, what's the smallest body of water you fished in, the method, and like where you caught something that was like, surprising?
Yeah, I think growing up, I fished a lot, like places like Whitehall and like and a lot of times there'll be a little culvert at the back of a cove that goes under the road, and on the other side there's like a little spot, right? And I think several ponds kind of around the Mumford River watershed, and growing up, you know, just go to the other side of the culvert with a spinner bait or a jig, and I've caught probably some of my in terms of cast and size of fish. Probably got the most surprise, you know, 3-4 pound fish consistently from these tiny little kind of runoff areas next to the dam and things like that. So I think for me, that's really been most of it. And then growing up, when we grew up in Douglas, you know, in that area, there's a bunch of old railroad tracks and things. And there are these tiny, tiny ponds. And back in the day, my dad had a bait shop, and we would say 7-8 pounders come every year out of these tiny ponds. Kids could ride their bikes out there, and they'd come in and weigh in these fish that were close to 10 pounds. So yeah, I think a lot of experience with kind of just you know, walking the shore and throwing it like just in these little drainage areas.
Oh yeah,
one that's got some depth.
That you mentioned the Mumford River. That's a really good one. I really like that one.
Yeah,
that's a good river. That's a nice
walk along the whole thing. Yeah. Just make sure you watch out for the metal.
Yeah, right.
That's nice though. Like when you have access around an entire small body of water like that, where you can just hop on a walking trail or something like that, that makes things really, really nice.
There's miles and miles. You could just get lost. Yeah.
I might have to check that out. Debo, what about you?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because there was something that I wanted to add on bank fishing, and that's time. So I know Jay said he just recently had a youngin'. And with my kids, I've got 2 kids, you know, running them to and fro, activities, pick up, you know, from school. Oftentimes I only have 2 hours to fish or an hour to fish. So that's what we'll say, you know, on our channel is #hour to fish. Go out and do it. If you have a boat or a kayak, that's about how long it takes you to launch and unlaunch, you know, put everything back on. So if you're running kids to activities, you have 2 hours. We have a bunch of like little retention ponds or, you know, irrigation ponds in the city, you know, like in the new housing developments where, you know, water drains into and everything for flooding, you know, that are like a couple acres is all, and can be great fishing. So yeah, don't overlook those just because you don't have a big crazy lake to fish.
Oh yeah. No, that absolutely makes sense. And I think that time is a huge thing. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because this year in 2025, Jigs and Bigs is doing a monthly bass tournament, a monthly slot limit tournament is what we're going to do. A single day. It'll be, I'm kind of leaning toward, I like the idea of the 3rd Saturday of the month is going to be a nationwide slot limit tournament. The way we normally do, 12-inch minimum, 17-inch cap at the high end. So the fish that fit within that slot, they count, and you get basically, it's a numbers game. It's catch as many as you can within that you know, size. And it's a good time. I am allowing something for the first time ever, and that's the ability to change bodies of water, eliminating the check-in and check-out. And I do think that this is going to put the bank angler at a significant advantage if they show up at the spot they wanted to fish and it didn't pan out the way they thought. If you've just got a couple of rods in a backpack, you throw that into your truck or your car and you hit the road and you go elsewhere. If you've got to pull any vessel out of a body of water and then move to another spot and then relaunch, that's going to take you more time to be able to do. It might be better off for you to just make it work where you are, you know? And I think
the biggest problem for us bank guys is showing up to a spot we were going to fish, and then it's
already got 15 people
there. Yeah.
I get that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot, especially like high like traffic weekends where you're like, oh, I'm going out. Well, first off, like any weekend, fishing on a Tuesday is always going to be better than fishing on a Saturday, no matter what. Just because of the
it's even the same. It's even the same in the boat world. It's the same in the boat world. There's nothing worse than it happened to me in a tournament this year. I did a 45-minute run to get to a spot, and there's fucking 3 boats there.
And
so, God,
and the mental toll that takes in a tournament.
I've gone out with my father on his boat, and we don't do tournaments, and we'll go out to a lake, and there'll be a tournament out on the lake that we went to go fish. So it's like, oh, now we gotta pull it around, find somewhere else to go.
Oh yeah.
So it's funny. So if I'm not fishing, so I learned that lesson. If I'm not fishing a tournament and I'm just on the weekend and I'm just going to fuck around and fish, and I have a body of water in mind, I make sure I check to make sure there's no fucking tournaments on.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, you have to. Now, what about you, John? What's your like smallest body? I should clarify. We have a couple of Johns. John Carter. What's your smallest body of water that you fished? What was the method? And something where you caught something that sort of surprised you.
Let's see here. I would say the smallest is probably it was right around maybe 70 or 80 acres.
Okay.
Once again. With Jay.
Yep.
Summertime when we were like 13, like we would go religiously every day to the dam, to the spillway, and we'd had our culprit worms and whatnot, and spinnerbaits, and the flying lure and whatever. We'd sit there for 2, 3, 4 hours, and there was this stone wall that was in front of us that that's where it held all the fish. So and that's pretty much where I kind of started bass fishing.
Yeah.
I was, trout fishing in the woods as a kid, but really the bass fishing really took it to me. And so, the surprising thing, just learning, the techniques and not being versed in it, watching Jay, who had his dad had the bait shop, and it was just the learning curve of catching those fish. And a funny story on that pond, many years after, probably 15 years after our inception of fishing there, we were fishing a ledge, and I tossed my Carolina rig into about 3 feet of water, and it dropped into about 17 feet of water. Oh. And I saw the line moving and set the hook. We had our anchor out, and it was and this fish came up, and I'm telling you, the size of a 5-gallon bucket. He got caught in the anchor rope, and I did everything I could. Of course, I was, under the influence at the time.
Oh, as you do.
And the worst pit in my stomach feeling, and probably the biggest fish in my life that I never caught. But
that's the worst.
That little pond, I think, produced like a 17-pound pike, in the 90s. It's crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
And then surprise of the story is it actually wasn't a fish. He just got snagged in the anchor rope and fell.
There was no hallucinogens that day.
No, there you go.
Yeah, that was a different day.
That was a different day.
John Higgins, how about you? What about you as far as like smallest body of water and all that?
My smallest body of water, I actually fish it a lot in the multi-species tournament.
Yep.
It's literally
I think I know what it is.
Where the little 2 creeks come together.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome.
So the small creek coming from the side is actually a spring-fed creek, and then the main creek is the headwaters for Deer Creek Reservoir.
Oh.
And I literally get everything in there, and that water usually only runs between 2 to 3 feet deep, and there's 1 6-foot hole, but I get white bass, saugeye, channel cats, small. I could go there right now, and usually I can go in there and kill it with a small just a little tiny shad wrap or even a rooster tail.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
And when it's real tough, like I could go out there right now, as cold as it is, and probably toss a live minnow and smash a big smallie. Just hang out there. They hang out in that 6-foot hole there. But yeah, everything. And there's countless crappie in there. There's black and white crappie, and they all seem to be 6 and 7 inches. But occasionally I'll find one that's 13, 14 inches in there.
Yep.
The most surprising, and of course all the gar and carp. I think the most surprising thing that came out of there, I didn't catch it, but there's a great big boulder that sits on the inside of the area where I fish, and somebody pulled a 30-pound flathead that had
for real? Oh my God.
excavating a burrow underneath the boulder. It was pre-spawn. Oh yeah, they'll go up as shallow as 2 feet of water and just to make a nest.
Noodle crazy. That bitch. My kid is obsessed. I got to take him noodling sometime. He's fucking obsessed with it for some reason.
They have charters for that in Oklahoma.
I'm not sticking my fucking hand in a hole, dude. No, nope. Thank you.
I always tell people about my dad's friend, his grandfather's friend. They called him Squeeze. He had fingers missing on both hands.
Yeah, he did.
He was a turtle guy.
That's my biggest fear. Like I'm gonna stick my hand in there to fucking grab a fucking catfish, and some alligator snapper, just some snapper, fucking takes my 2 fingers off. Then my wife will be real pissed.
He lost 2 fingers to a turtle and 1 to a muskrat.
It's magic.
I never understood the nickname Squeeze though. That was the funny part.
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, that's nuts, dude. It's fun. I say I know that body of water because every time I approve a catch, I see a little map of that location, and so I'm like, that son of a bitch, that thing's got to be pay dirt. That's like the Golden Corral.
You know what? You come down here and we might stop by there. Yeah, we'll stop by there
before we go to that taco place. What is it, Maria's?
Maria's, yeah.
Maria's, we're going there too. See,
John, is it near Columbus? Is it near Columbus?
Just about 25 minutes southwest.
All right, we might have to talk. I'm going to be in Columbus in a few weeks.
I'll be there. I'll be at the expo on Friday.
I'm going to miss that, and I am so upset about it. You guys don't even know. I'm going to go and drop. I have 3 different stories for 3 different methods of fishing. And the reason why I brought this up is because I want to show that it doesn't really matter. Amazing shit can happen anywhere. So let's talk about the bank fishing one. This was just this last year. I was at Jordan Lake in North Carolina fishing with the one and only jabberhammer. Ayo! And the fishing was abysmal. It was terrible on the lake. It was ridiculous. We went out 3 different occasions for hours each time. We got dumped on with rain. None of us could buy a bite. It was just ridiculous. This is mid-March. I think it was around St. Patty's Day. And, but I was like, hey, it's open water and I've got my kayak and I just don't give a shit. We're going to have a good time. Well, right where we were camping, there was this tiny, I don't even want to call it a retention pond. It was like a puddle in the woods. I don't even know what it was there for. And I took my BFS combo with a small Bronco blade with a 2-inch easy shiner on it. And I just flipped this bait across the pond and would retrieve real slow, pop a couple of times. I caught a freaking black crappie out of that sucker. It was the only fish I caught that weekend. I was like, and there was a park ranger that was coming by and she saw me. She's like, there's fish in there? I'm like, apparently so. We're not going to eat it because I don't want to get fucking dick cancer, but hey, it's all good. So
always got to worry about that.
That was my bank fishing one. Now the kayak fishing one is the most it's one of, I want a pin for this fish and I'm going to show you guys. So I was fishing and it was actually, I think, I forget which one of you guys were talking about. I think it was Dave talking about it, a 30-acre pond. I caught this fish and I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to go ahead and say what it is. I caught this fish on at a spot in, just outside of Springfield, Massachusetts. There we go. And this is my PB brown trout right there. Absolute monster, 24-inch, 30-acre pond just outside of Springfield, Mass. Caught this. I was in my kayak, and it was one of these things where there was no way I would be able to catch this fish from the bank because the bank that it was there, and to illuminate the sort of the plight of the bank angler, it's a lot of houses on this lake. So I'm fishing the bank that is their backyard. So there's just no way I would have been able to catch this fish if I was bank fishing along this spot. There are a handful of spots. And I mean, had I crossed paths with this fish, sure. But it's all properties that go along this one area, along this point. There happened to be this big laydown tree that was sticking right out. And it probably had just fallen like at the end of the previous year or something like that. So I throw, it was the same bait. It was that little Bronco blade with a 2-inch Kayak Easy Shiner on it. And this trout absolutely hammered this, pull and drag like crazy. I had just lost a big bass earlier in the day and was afraid I was going to lose it because I lost the bass because I played it like an asshole. But this fish, I got in there and I had to use the fish grips on it because he was so big. My tiny ass little fucking hands couldn't hold him on the board. So I had to use the fish grips to get him on the board. So I do all this jazz. I got a state pin for it. It's like, it was such an accomplishment. I couldn't believe it. But that was a situation where like I needed to be in the kayak and that body of water, launching my boat there, while I could do it, it would not be ideal. It would not be ideal because the launch area is sketch city. The angle and the way, I don't know, it might just be a mess. Be one of those things where like I have to trim my motor up to where it's like horizontal, like that high. So that's probably going to be a kayak only kind of place. Now, obviously, this was a stocked fish. It's a brown trout. And it was the breeder, you know, the one that they were like, oh, we better let this one go because I think this is the last batch of fry that it's got in it. So we're going to go ahead and release this sucker. And it was an absolute tank, absolutely beautiful. The third one, and this is a boat one, and this is, I've talked about this on the podcast a lot. It's a small body of water. It is a river. It's the Swift River. And I have had this monkey on my back since I was a little kid. I was like 11 or 12 when we first moved into this town, and my father and I started fishing this spot. And it is world renowned as one of the best fly fishing spots for just absolute tanks. And it's crystal clear. It's ice cold. I've been in there a number of times in my kayak. Twice it was fruitful. Every other time where the current was just a little bit too crazy to be able to lock down in one spot. The way I fish this river now is I launch my boat and I go down to a spot, you know, and just work up, you know, stay on the trolling motor, get to a pool where I want to fish, lock it down, and then just power fish with BFS, you know, throw little swim baits and stuff. And I caught my PB brook trout there, which is nothing amazing. I think it was like a 12 or a 13. And I was amazed. I'm like, this is the way to fish this. And it's stupid because I could be at one bank and cast all the way across the other bank. But just the access, because of the amount of property that's along there, that you can't access those banks. And then the traffic of people hiking along the other bank where there's this trail, it's just kind of nuts. So like it can happen all over the place, you know? We got another jighead joining us. Tim Behan joins in. Speaking of the multi-species scavenger hunt, we just have absolute multi-species monsters over here. So what about you, Joe? And this is the one I'm really, really interested in. Like, what was that the smallest body of water where you caught something that was kind of like amazing?
Yeah, so I got 3 as well. So nothing in the boat, everything bank. So That's my first one, I'm gonna name drop some places, and Jay and John are gonna know these spots. So there's they're no bass. These are not one of these stories. One is bass related. This one I'm not gonna name the name of, but to those guys I will on the side. But anyway, so there's a place called Howe Park in Spencer, Mass. It has this little creek that comes off of it that holds like little native brook trout, man. And this, I mean, we're talking, this thing is so narrow that like as you're walking down the trail and you're like, oh, there's a fucking tree in my way, you just hop to the other side and start walking. Like that's how narrow it is.
Oh wow.
And that's a cool spot. But if you like, you know, as a kid, with my cousin, we walked it down at like miles and miles. We actually found this, there's this trail that we used to ride our ATVs and shit with. And then the state of Massachusetts came in. They're like, no, it's a walking trail. You can't bring those on there. So it's just like a walking trail now. So we're walking and we just see this little puddle. Essentially this little puddle is probably like 4 feet deep, dude. And it was maybe like 10 feet in diameter, tiny. Yeah. And it had there was like this little pond on the other side of the trail. And then there was basically a storm pipe or a pipe that feeds water into it, and we started throwing in there, dude, and we just started catching these little gorgeous like native brookies, dude, like probably like 4 or 5 inches. You know what I mean? They were just stacked in there, like
awesome,
a ton of them. And literally, this thing was like 6 feet across, maybe. It was nutso, and we just literally sat there for all day. You know, I was probably 12, 13 years old. Dude. All day we just sat there. And nice hot summer day and then the little water coming from the storm pipe or whatever. We're like, I'm fucking thirsty, and we're drinking that water. I don't know how I'm not dead today. Just like a 12-year-old kid, you're like, water, I'm thirsty. Okay, this makes sense.
What a day.
So the second one, there's a pond, right? A small pond. And John Carter and Jay might get this one. There's a small pond in the middle of Spencer, kind of like in the hood area, the low income area that, I know multiple people that have caught their PB bass in there, to include my dad.
Really?
Yep. And it was my dad caught a 7 out of there. I know a ton of people that just nobody people. You'll see people fucking around there every once in a while, but remember my cousin Jake? He was with Ryan Anderson. He was on the show a long time ago.
Stories about that place.
Yeah, he used to. Yep. So he used to frog fish the hell out of that place and just catch donks out of there. And I've caught a few good ones out of there, just screwing around as a kid, because I grew up like a half a mile from there.
Yeah,
in the shitty part of Spencer, you know, and poor kid from Spencer. But
enjoy that.
No, so big churches, the big churches right there, dude. I grew up right there. Yep. But so the third one, and I actually have a picture here. I'm gonna see if I can share it with you guys. So this one right here. You know what? It's not. I don't know. It's not gonna work. So anyway, I caught one of my bigger salmon that I caught up in New York, and I don't know if you guys can. I'll try and put it up there for you guys to see.
I'll actually put this like that. There you go. Put it back up there, Joe.
That one right there was, you can't see the water behind me, but again, it was like maybe 12 feet across, right? And it was crazy. It was like 6 inches of water. You see these fish coming up, and like half of them are out of the water to get to this deep pool that, you know, it was like maybe 12 feet across, but it was probably like 8-10 feet deep. And they go in that pool and they chill out in there, and they kind of like rest a little bit to continue the way upstream. And I just so happened to the run was pretty much over. We got up there kind of too late, and this actually was about a half mile from the Airbnb. That I just so happened to catch on like Google Maps or something. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a walk down there. And there's another dude down there. I was like, wait a second. And he looked at me like, he's like, this motherfucker. Oh, yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
He was cursing everything about you at that moment. Yeah.
And so him and I, like, he's on one side, I'm on the other, and we're just staring down each other. We didn't say a fucking word to one another the whole time, just staring down. And finally, like, he hooks up, and I'm like, okay. And he hooked up close, and then I hooked up, and he actually netted my fish for me on the other side, because this thing was just like, I couldn't get this thing to come in for the life of me. I didn't have the correct setup for like a river. So we end up it's a wicked small spot up in Pulaski that I hit there every time now. It's like I said, you got to kind of like trek in the woods a little bit, and
actually the one time we went up there, people say you're lucky to get one fish, and I got like 3 or 4, but the best spot I found was just like a side stream.
That's what you got to do.
It just like broke off. Everybody else went one way.
Yep.
Just sneak up there. Yeah.
And no one does their research for places like that. All you got to do is pull up fucking Google Maps and not be, half dumb, and be like, okay, they're probably going down this extension here. Yeah. You know what I mean? To save some time, but human beings can be lazy, man, and they don't want to walk that extra 15 minutes to have that ability to catch more fish.
Yep. So and that's though, right, when you can yank it out of a little spot like that.
It's the best, dude. It's when you can't even. It's so narrow you can't even cast. You have to like flip your bait in there. You know what I mean? It's like
story of my life. Like that's how I learned to pitch. You know?
Do you ever feel the animosity when you're fishing next to somebody and you smash a hog and they come and net it for you and they're like, "You son of a bitch"?
Oh yeah. So the good thing is like me and this guy ended up talking in the end. I'm like, and you know, because he was a local. He's like, dude. He's like, in the end, he's like, how the fuck did you find this spot? He was a little bit older than me at the time. I was like, Google Maps. He's like, oh, these fucking computers, man. I was like,
AI's gonna destroy the world, goddamn.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, no. I was like, I usually fish like closer to like the lake and stuff. We have an Airbnb up the street, and like I wasn't catching shit. He's like, yeah. He's like, no, they're already out. They're already way too far up for that. And
I've heard timing is like everything up there.
It's key, dude.
Yeah,
it's key.
Timing, water flow, and you know, local. I mean, I did the trip 10 years or better. Now I don't even go anymore.
Yeah,
but
I haven't.
The whole salmon thing is, it's if you haven't experienced it, you got to do it just to do it.
I think
because it's insane, dude. I use a fly rod, 10-weight fly rod, and it's insane.
That's a trip I want to do. I just want to avoid the fights.
I'm going to incite some. I have an idea for a video, and Debo, if this shows up on your channel, we're never going to speak again. But I have an idea for a video. I'm going to show up in my Mega Bass flat brim and my BFS gear only, like middle with some pit vipers. I'm just going to slay them, dude.
And a fucking jerk bait, dude. And a jerk bait.
Like a tiny, like a quarter gram, just like bing, bing, bing.
Yeah.
I think timing is everything with any kind of run, because it's the walleye run up here in northern Ohio is pretty crazy. February, March.
Oh yeah,
because if you miss by a little bit, big females are already past, and you're just hunting little males.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is. It's timing is crazy, and people look at that and they're, you know. You talk about planning a trip, and it's if you've never gone before, this is where you want to like pick the brains of people who are there, or go with a guide. You know what I mean? Get on a float.
I will tell every single one of you. And you know, John, Jay, you guys been up there. You know, Debo, Dave, whoever. If you have the means to do it at least once, around the end of October, early November. Go do a drift boat trip for steelhead on the Salmon River. It is the fucking coolest experience.
That's totally on my radar.
Yeah, it is. It is one of the gnarliest things I've done, man.
Yep.
It's
try that.
You got to do it.
It's brown trout. That's what I want to go up there for.
Oh, you got those huge. So
those late run brown trout.
Yeah. Yep. You find them in the creeks, the wicked narrow creeks too. It's. I mean, and we're talking footballs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
and you can actually catch them too, because they're just up there gorging themselves on the.
They're
eggs,
actually feeding. Yeah, they're actually feeding. But that's a good thing about the steelhead too. The steelhead are actually feeding.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of using that just like high-low rig type shit with the salmon and hoping that their mouth hits your line. But like with those steelhead, they're in there eating the eggs, man. So they're going crazy and nuts. And
incredible fish.
A lot of people they use skein when they're fishing for those up there, right?
They use what?
Skein, like the egg, like basically what an egg sac is supposed to emulate.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
So I use a float, like one of those clear plastic like floats, and you could just put a bead on your hook. You know what I mean? That emulates, and you just run that float down, and it just, you see that bobber go down, you set the hook,
rip
dude.
it. Oh.
It's fucking, it's gnarly, dude. It is fucking fun, and
I've been seeing quite a few posts from up around the Cleveland area with the steelhead run. Guys up there using the salmon, the basically the eggs or whatever.
Yep. Dude, you can put one, you don't even have to put a sack, like an egg sack on it. You just put one single egg on there with that float, dude. And as soon as that float goes, it's
lights out, I'm sure.
And with the drift boats, it's just like, it's cool. Cause it's like it's just like a beautiful run down the Salmon River. You know what I mean? You're seeing a lot of cool shit. But
Can we clarify? Is it actually Pulaski or Pulaski?
It's Pulaski. Pulaski.
Is it really
Pulaski? Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So for those of you on the screen here didn't know, my sister actually met her husband up there. He owned a tackle shop up there, and that's how they met. And now they're married and live in Michigan. But
that's
my
awesome.
sister ran a tackle shop up there for like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And when I call it Pulaski, she's like, "You're such a fucking idiot."
This whole time I thought it was Pulaski, and I was like, "You guys are fucking idiots."
Yeah,
Pulaski.
Yeah, it makes no sense. At least put a fucking asterisk above or something.
That's something like that. Something.
Not that I know it. Not that I paid attention English class. I didn't even know what that fucking means. But
it shows ownership, Joe.
Yeah,
it's true.
So Bobby, I actually have a question for the group.
Yeah,
and maybe you are planning on asking this question, but I think it's a good one. I think it puts a little spice into it.
I love spice.
So for those of you, let's think about, we talked about our primary means of fishing, whether boat, bank, kayak. I want to know what your biggest pet peeve of the other means of fishing is to you. So if you're a boat angler, what pisses you off the most about a kayak or bank angler, and vice versa? If you're a bank angler, what pisses you off about, what's your pet peeve about the boat or the kayak guys? Debo.
I was just going to say, dude, it was right on the end of my tongue because I was going to say it's proximal distance, I guess would be the technical term.
Yes.
People getting too fucking close, no matter where, every single one of us face it. If you're on the bank, it never fails. You've got one jetty you can fish is all. And there's some boat that creeps right up on the edge of that point while you're fishing it and is just staring at you like, come on, you got the whole lake. And vice versa. It's like, you're sitting there fishing a point and some guy walks up on the bank and just starts casting right at you. You're like, dude, you can walk the whole thing. And I don't know when it's the old boys, like, I don't care, if it's 80-year-old Harold that rolls up, I don't care, because he's got his bucket but like, you got the guys that, they know, and they're just being dicks about it. It's like, it's rough, but, or kids, kids don't know yet.
I find if you cast, you get those people and you cast over their lines a couple times, they either they get the hint or they don't. And if they don't, well, I guess you can have the spot. It's a big lake, and I'll just keep moving.
Tie that 3-ounce weight on real quick, lead weight.
I thought you were going to say once you cast some treble hooks into them, then they'll.
I like to start following them around and catching fish behind them.
Oh yeah.
Big deal about it. You're like, you guys didn't see that.
This place is so good.
How about you, John Carter? What do you got?
I think I have to agree with Devo for sure. I don't care if you're banking it, kayaking it, or boat. Like, I mean, if you're, it's the distance and it's the respect.
Yep.
If I was there and you see me and you come up within 150 feet of me on either side in any direction, I mean, I'll never say anything to you, but in my mind, I'm like, you're a dick.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you here? Did you see me catch a fish?
Yeah.
I just try not to get that upset when I'm fishing but dealing with stupid and.
I think it's really funny, John, that you bring that point up because you're like, I've totally forgot what the fuck I was going to say. I think it's interesting because Todd S comments in here. Todd Sefton, he goes, I've had issues with both boat guys and kayakers. It's just interesting when you're like, it doesn't matter. It's just the respect. I had an instance. This is what it was specifically when you're like, I won't say anything, but like I was out with my buddy Jimmy. I had mentioned him earlier, right? And we're fishing this one super pressured spot. So there's anglers everywhere. I don't give a shit. It's fine. But you get a lot of noobs, and you get these noobs that don't know anything. And I've got lines out. I've got things going on. Stuff's happening. And my buddy is listening to me talk, and he goes, once we got into like sort of like vocal range where they could hear you, he goes, your terminology for them totally changed. He was like, you were wishing absolute death upon them and everybody in their family and everything else. But then when they got up here, you were like, how you doing, guys? You catching them? Blah, 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 blah. I was like, that's fishing. Like, that's just how it is.
Yep. How about you, Dave? Is kind of the same stuff, or
for the most part. But like you guys were saying, if it's an older guy that's sitting there, like Debo was saying, you let him have his spot, man.
Sure.
If I'll walk up on a guy who's fishing a shoreline from a boat or a kayak, I'll keep walking. Especially if there's plenty of spots for shore access.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, he beat me to it, and you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Yep.
So, but I got a story on the other side when I was out on a boat. So I was out on a Quinsigamon for the first time with my father on his boat.
Yep.
And we launched out of
tough
Flint.
spot.
Yeah, it is.
We Flint's a mud hole.
Yeah, so we've never done it on the boat. This is the first time being out there on the boat. So we launched out of Flint, but we wanted to hit the main body because we've never been there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know it very well. We went under the bridge. I don't know, where you go under the bridge, and it's a tight fit for a boat. I mean, he's got a nitro, but it's a tight fit.
It's tight. I got to put my Raptors or my power poles all the way down to fit through there. Yeah.
And we had to trim down and kind of, duck our heads, but there were a couple guys fishing off the bridge.
Yep.
Now they had their lines off in the opposite direction. We went through as quiet as we could. Mm-hmm. And the guys, I could tell. I know the look. I mean, I've given the look.
You've seen it, yeah.
And we just kind of, we slowly went out and we went out. We did our thing out in the main body. And we started coming back. And these guys saw us coming back. And they had dropped their lines right in the bridge, right in the middle of the bridge, right where we had to go. So, I mean...
See, that's on them, though.
We got to go back.
A high traffic area like that where people have to come through, that's on.
We had to, and we just went, and I don't know, for about 15 feet, we drug their lines with the outboard. I mean,
I don't feel so bad.
They did it on purpose. We didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
They were trying to choke up your prop, dude. That's
exactly
what
they were trying to do.
Yeah, that's just them being totally, because guess what? You launched in Flint, and for those of you who don't know this, it's attached. Flint is attached by Quinsigamon by that essentially that one waterway that Dave is talking about. So if you launch in Flint, it's your only way to get back. That was your only way to get back to where your boat ramp is. And if you're gonna go, if you're gonna fish in a waterway or a way of travel for a boat, like
you got to deal with what comes up with that.
You guys have the right. You guys have the right away.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
a good point. That's a real good point, Joe. Because it could be a boat or a kayak. It wouldn't matter. But if that's the only access there, like, what do you want?
There's nothing we could do. We got to get back to the trailer.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's another spot I fish on the Charles River that might be 40, 50 feet wide. I can cast all the way across. This is where mainly where I carp fish. And it's a very popular kayak area, and it's not just fishing. It's mainly just people renting kayaks further upstream, and then just kind of touring the river. And I understand that. I've been fishing there for 10 years for carp. I get that, So, people will just go by, and there's nothing I can do, man. Like, you got to share the water with everybody. Yeah, so you just kind of let them go by, and hey, how you doing? And just kind of hope that they're not making a lot of noise going by. So you got to share the water, but you got to be respectful.
No, 100%.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Anyone else got any takes?
I hate everybody equally. I don't know whether it's because I'm a Grinch or a miser.
Me too, dude. Me too.
It's literally, I mean, so when I show up and I bank fish, like I said, when I show up, I'll literally stand there and scout a spot for 30, 40 minutes before I even touch the water. Yeah. Just to see what's going on, who's doing what. As far as the bass guys that are fishing, they're quietly drifting by. That's cool. That doesn't bother me at all. If I got to move because I'm notorious for fishing boat ramps, but I will fish it in a manner where I'm out of the way.
Yeah,
I don't sit on the ramp. I cast downriver, or somehow if the water's not moving, I'll cast upriver and just make sure, hey, I'm not in the way. I'm sorry. If you need me to move my line, whatever. It's the assholes that will drift through 2 feet from the bank and like, catching anything? No, motherfucker, not now. Or you get the wreck kayakers that, hey, catching anything, and they go right across your line. I've bitched to you about it, Bobby, several times.
Oh yeah.
But bank fishermen are just as bad.
Yeah.
They see you catch one thing, and there's a certain group that come, oh, you're catching? Yes, I am. And they want to cast right on top of you.
That's the worst.
Yep.
So I will look to see where people are, and if it's not suitable, and I know I've got another spot that's just as good as where I'm at, I will move downriver. I don't know who mentioned it about having 100 different spots. You can find 100 spots in one location.
Oh, for sure.
Especially with the spill with the big river dams that I fish, you could have 100 different spots in one area because you've got drop offs, you've got rocks sloping into you've got gravel bank, gravel shoreline, fast water, slow water, eddies and currents. You can literally move 10 yards and have a completely different fishing experience and maybe catch more fish.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but people are just annoying on the bank too when you're trying to fish. We get a lot of the some of the quieter rivers. You get down there, you get settled in, and then you have a truckload of hillbillies show up when they're lighting the biggest fire in the world that you can see 10 miles away.
Yep.
Drinking beer and carrying on, and they got Jelly Roll blaring in the background. So.
Don't get me started on that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Another thing this year was the worst year for boat dock people. And I specifically awarded a young kid because I don't know how many times it was actually really funny. One of the first times launching my kayak, I was stepping on, it's like one of those metal, like real nice docks, but it's kind of,
a little wobbly, like a floater.
Yeah. But real nice. They had just put it in, I don't know, a couple of years ago, but I was stepping out on that and walking out, and there was a guy out there with his, I don't know what they were, if it was his girlfriend or what. I hope so, because dude needs slapped. But he's like, oh, we're out here fishing now. Aren't you happy? You're bitching about we want to go home. Anyway, just complete douche. Well, so like the girlfriend's trying to help the kid get the stuff all done. And of course they've got like their tackle boxes and stuff all strung out, like don't care. And she's like, quit moving the boat dock. And it's me walking out at it. And I'm like, sorry, I've got big feet. And she's just like, you could tell she was just like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she thought it was the other guy.
Scattered everywhere. Yeah. But people like that are just oblivious, don't care. But I had like 3 or 4 like that where people wouldn't move, didn't care, either launching or coming in. The only one was a kid. And he was like, I don't know, 10 years old as I'm coming in. He's like, oh, sorry. He's like, sorry, I'm in your way. I'm like, dude, you're good. So his dad was walking over. I'm like, are you dad? He's like, yeah, why? I'm like, dude, I just wanted to shake your hand. You're raising your boy right. Yeah. And so we stood there and BS'd for a while because, respectful. And it's like, dude, more of that. So I ended up giving a bunch of lures and stuff. But like,
that's awesome.
The number of people that just don't, I don't know, just like no common sense. Clearly if you're fishing there and I've got to get my boat in, common sense would say fish the other side or, move. But
it's funny. We're all out there doing the same thing, but yet we can't respect each other.
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I like to fish boat docks a lot too, especially with the access to deep water, but I tend to like to wait until the boat traffic dies down. Once the parking lot starts to empty out, I can kind of set up shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good time to do it.
I think sorry about that, Bobby, but
go ahead.
I think since I got a boat, I had to really, because it's easy to get up close to spots and to kind of forget, where you are, right? And I think some people are raised to kind of stay out of everyone's way, and that's kind of how I was raised. At the grocery store, you just kind of keep moving. You don't stop, right?
Sure.
I think so for me, it's just like I float up onto a dock while I'm tying up my line or something like that, and so really had to make sure. A couple of times I float up on guys on the shore. I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry, I just didn't even see you, and I think they're looking at me kind of like you said, John, with that look. And it's like, so I think part of it is just like letting people know, hey man, I screwed up. Right. Like I just snuck up on you. Right. Like I'm just going to go around over here. And I think that helps a lot with people. Right. These days. Cause kind of people, I don't know about you guys, but you're not having a great day and someone comes up on you, you're kind of like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You know, and have someone go, hey man, I didn't even see you there. You know?
Start grabbing the ground. Mine.
You make a good point too. Like a lot of it is about the conversation in that time. Like I had an instance where I don't know if this is this year or last year. It might have been last year. I had gone. I was fishing a spot that I fish the hell out of all the time, and this is a place that gets stocked with trout. So you get a lot of those, like, I'm following the stocking report. I'm going to show up and only fish at these times, whatever. And these guys would show up and they cast way fucking out, you know? It's like, oh, these trout are out deep. And in the whole area, like, if they looked at the map, would realize, like, a lot of it is, like, 16 foot, you know? And there's just, like, a ledge that drops off. So, like, it's nothing crazy. I had gone over to this area. I was going to fish this one, and I was looking to fish deeper water in this pond, looking for a bite. And I go over, and these guys had these lines. And I remember it was a crazy windy day, and I was starting to set up to fish, and I had drifted over to this one spot. And the problem was I was over their lines, and they were shallow enough to where my prop was a problem. And I scooped up their lines, and I was, as soon as I felt like I started like pedaling, I could feel it, grab it, and I stopped. Well, these guys started giving me a bunch of shit, and I was like, sit tight, hold on. And I was actually taking, because I've got the tools on board, I was going to take my prop off to go and fix it. And they're like, they started like shouting out a bunch of shit. I don't know what the fuck these guys, they were
special fucking specimens of anglers.
And they started fucking just giving me a bunch of shit. And I was like, you know what, you guys? Fuck off. I took my fucking line snips, cut their lines, and kept going.
We call those guys Scoobies.
Yeah, if you treat folks the right way and fucking like realize like, hey, sometimes shit happens, you know, let me fix it, you know, and don't fucking berate me over it. If you're going to treat me like an asshole, I'm going to treat you like the asshole you are, you know? And they were all kinds of pissed off when I cut their lines. And I told them, I was like, come out and get me. I'm like, come on.
Bobby.
Stood up on the kayak.
He gets back to the boat ramp and they're
Bobby.
That was way too far.
That was the day I went to the hospital, by the way.
Tim Behan chimes in here. He goes, and speaking of Quinsig, he goes, I was at a bass tournament at Lake Quinsig and was paddling to a north end cove and was 100 feet away. A boat came from out of nowhere going 50 miles an hour, beat me there with huge wakes. I think I know the cove. And they should have known that's where you were going. That's fucked up. You know? Oh, here's John Carter joining us back. And we're back.
Sorry, guys.
No worries, John. No worries.
I threw my phone at the wall. I had to fix it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sometimes that's the only way you can fix it.
That's how I fix everything.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry for your kid.
He doesn't get as bad as I did.
Fire tonight. This is awesome.
That was a good one, Devo.
I used to work with an old maintenance guy. He said shit's not get fixed until he's throwing or dropping tools horizontally.
My God. Is this my go around now?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, all right. So, you know what gets me is just the entitlement of everybody.
Sure.
That's what it is. The entitlement of the boat owner. The one that gets me even more fired up is the entitlement of the
tournament angler,
where they're out fishing regardless what the vessel is, and they're like, I'm on a tournament, and I'm like, fuck you, I paid for this license too. You know what I mean? Like, it just, like, take a step back and realize that, like, that's part of the obstacle. That's part of the competition. If you're a bank angler and somebody shows up there, are you going to kick them off and go like,
I'm in the jigs and bigs and multi-species scavenger hunt. You got to go. Do you know who I am? I'm Tim fucking Behan. God damn it.
No, I'm hoping you guys heard that with the vocal effects because it sounds that much better. But it's just one of those things where it's like the entitlement of the angler where you're like, oh, I was in this spot. And it's a little bit different for everybody. If you've fished in a situation where you've been a bank angler and you're like, listen, there's only so many spots around here. And you're in a boat, like I will see that guy fishing on the bank and I'm like, I'm going to take my boat and fish the opposite end of this river. Or I'm going to go over here and wait until he's done, and then I'll go and clean house because
I am the man.
Or, the other end of it, like I might be fishing, in a kayak, and then somebody comes over and there's, no, and I'll tell them, hey, give me 5 minutes. I'll be out of here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that. I feel like it's the entitlement of because I've had bank anglers tell me before, like this was the same body of water. There was there's only so many spots to be able to fish this area. And I'm like, I actually looked at him right in the face. In fact, Dave, I bumped into you there at this one body of water one time. And I was like, no, there are plenty of places for you to fucking fish anywhere you want to go.
That time that I bumped into you.
Yep. That's where
we just kept walking. I think it was you and Chrissy.
Yeah, it was. It was Chrissy and I.
Yep. We just kept walking. We gave you the whole cove.
I fucking caught a tank right in that cove. It was the opposite side of it, but I mean, I caught an absolute tank that day.
That's the cove that I caught that both in.
I remember, and I've been there every single week since, looking for bowfin over there. That was the body of water I caught my first and only bowfin at, and it was just one of those situations where it's like, you can't have this level of entitlement regardless of what you're doing on the water, regardless if you're competing. If there's money on the line, who gives a shit? Because it is a public body of water. That's why these tournaments are on these bodies of water.
I think the tournament. So being someone who hadn't done it and tried it, I would say first of all, I get a lot of respect for the guys who can go out there and get a limit. I mean, it's just to show up to the boat ramp without a limit is brutal. Especially if you've been fishing for 30 years, right? Because you think you know what you're doing, right? And then you go to a tournament. And then growing up in a bait shop, we shared all the information. I mean, it was just, that's how I learned. People taught me how to fish, right? And so I'm torn between, I met a guy that listens to the podcast, Joe, Lashaway, and I was like, I'm going to show you some spots. And, he didn't know had never been to the lake, or he hadn't caught a lot of fish there. And I was like, you don't tell anybody, I'm going to have you a day. And we went out and we killed them, right? And we really enjoyed it. I think on the tournament side, there's a lot at stake. It sucks to lose, and nobody wants to share anything because,
of course,
there are some secrets. Honestly, there are, and there's some little spots. If you know about them, you can have a great day and maybe ruin someone else's. So I never really understood it, but I think generally, we've got to, all of us, and I think Dave, anybody who wants to go on my boat, you're welcome. But we got to make sure we're sharing this stuff with other people to grow the sport, because we're a bunch of grumpy assholes, frankly, most of us, right? And we like to go fishing because we get some time alone.
Yep.
But I think it's important too that, and even the tournament guys, we have to understand a little bit, but some are just dicks, right? And they're just not the type of people that aren't, just like people on the shore that aren't nice. It's not because they're tournament anglers.
Yeah.
They're also in a tournament and they're taking it way seriously, because they don't want to show up with no fish, by the way, because that's no fun.
No, definitely. In fact, it's funny, Joe, you remember that time you and I fished that tournament where we were on some sketchy water on the river? There was a 3-day long carp tournament going on that day.
That's right. I was thinking of that earlier. I was pretty sure that was with you, but I wasn't positive.
Yeah, and we were in spots and we're like, God, that looks so juicy. But there's you see 2 or 3 lines.
Yeah.
We're like, we're not going to fuck around with it. In fact, it's funny. I knew some people who were entered in that tournament. And I went back later that night. They were like, oh, come by. We're going to be grilling. It's going to be awesome. That's my kind of tournament.
Yeah.
That's my kind of tournament right there.
Yeah,
But
I think the local tournaments, those are the most intense, because I can tell you a story. The summer before last, I was out just bait fishing not even 3 feet off the bank, catching green sunfish, and they were running a tournament in the lake, and it was literally one boat after another. These guys aren't even 50 feet apart. One after another, combing the bank, and then I think it was a fifth boat they came through, and they're chucking at the bank right towards me, and I usually get one off that dock. Fucking asshole on the shore probably spooked them all out of there. I'm like, it was probably the last 4 boats that passed through this.
It was that last half-ounce jackhammer that came by. That's what it was. You idiots are all throwing the same shit.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what Bobby Roast Beef needs to do, is just sit down with a live mic and just yap with a couple glasses of bourbon and just let all the emotions out.
Yep.
So what about you, Joe?
So I think you saying the sense of entitlement beyond with kind of every single demographic of anglers is on point.
Yep.
One thing I struggle with is you have a lot of I've encountered bank anglers that think because I have a boat, I'm not going to fish at the bank at all, towards the bank. I will be the first one to tell you I'm very respectful of bank anglers, kayak anglers, because I don't want to be responsible for flipping some fucking kayak. So if I see a kayak, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to try not to wake them.
Yep.
It does happen sometimes because for one reason or the other, I don't see them or whatever. And I generally feel bad about it, but I'll have the guys that, if I see someone fishing the bank, especially whether I'm in a tournament, fun fishing, whatever, if I see someone fishing the bank, I will work my way up to them, and then I will not touch anything in the vicinity that they're fishing, and then I will continue. And still, like, I've had people make comments and whatever, like, "Oh, you were in that fucking boat. Why don't you go fish
like
in the middle of the lake?"
If I'm past the cast and a half, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah,
if I'm past the cast and a half of you, you can't reach it. So just
exactly. And there was it's funny because I think I did it as an FTG this year. I was actually on the place local to John and I, or to Jay and I. I was fishing that Route 9 dam, and by myself. And there's this one guy that fishes with shiners. Jay's probably seen him 1,000 times. He sits there, fishes, and he always has another guy with him. But this guy they had with him this time was different from the typical guy he has. And I'm fishing this dam. They're probably 50, 75 yards away from me. And I'm just pulling nice fish after nice fish off this dam. Mm-hmm. And this guy fucking sees this, picks up his lawn chair, walks over, and then just like casts right towards me and like just completely cuts me. Like doesn't even make eye contact with me, just cuts me with his bobber and shiner. I'm like, sweet. So it's like, what? I was fun fishing. I was fun fishing, and I'm like, you obviously need these fucking fish more than me, so I'm just gonna let you hit. Like, it's like some 70-year-old guy. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm gonna get off my boat and fucking fight the guy. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I'm just like, you obviously need this spot more than I do, and I just like I moved on. It was funny. I moved on. And I didn't see him catch anything after I was just smashed him. And then I caught another decent one right in front of where he was sitting beforehand. And like in my head, I'm just like, that's what you get, motherfucker. Yeah, they like my little stupid fucking wacky worm versus your fucking shiner.
That's exactly it.
Yep. But with the
I've actually got to jump, guys. Sorry to jump in on you, Joe, but I have to roll.
No worries.
Thank you for the invite, sir.
Dude, this was awesome. Thank you, Debo. I appreciate you being part of it,
good talking, fellas. Nice to meet y'all. Take care.
We'll do this. We'll do more of this for sure, man. Have a great night, bud.
See you, dude. But I would say, so when it comes to the big boat guys, there is a lot of big boat guys that are super entitled. I like to think that I'm not one of them. I like to try to be very respectful to all the other guys.
I think that you are, Joe. I think you're very much respectful to everybody.
Yep. There are instances, if I'm trying to, especially, I haven't really run into like a spot like a kayaker's there and I want to fish that same spot. I haven't really run into that. If there's someone on shore, I'm like, hey, like, you mind if I cast in around here? And I haven't had any issue. There is one kind of demographic of people I have run into like hardcore kayak guys that just, it reminds me of like,
they're the worst.
It reminds me of like the $1,000 waiter fucking fly fishermen that are just like, this is the fucking, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, if you're not in a fucking kayak, you're just not worth it to me. You know what I mean? I have run into a lot of that. There is a lot of that, like especially on social media, or just in the the community itself. That's one that kind of irks me, and I know a couple of them, which is even crazier. They're like, "Oh, you went out and spent all that money on all that boat." I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like, sorry, yeah, I'm an asshole with my money. I'm sorry. Like, but I'm happy. You know what I mean?" And then. Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. But yeah, there is a lot of like tournament assholes that don't respect the guys on the bank, that don't respect the guys in the kayaks. Like I don't like seeing the guys get waved out or waked out. by the bass boat. Super disrespectful. I get that. I've done it on occasion accidentally just because they were in a cove or whatever. I didn't see them, and I'm just like, especially when I'm coming off the throttle, and I got that 2-footer heading towards them, and I'll yell, be like, dude, I'm so sorry, like I didn't see you there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like hold on, and but yeah, so it's some of us big boat tournament guys are assholes. I'll be the first one to admit it. There's assholes in the kayak game, and then there's assholes in the bank game. We're like, oh, look at these assholes in these boats. I can catch the same from the bank, and that's awesome. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
I mean, look at John and Dave both. You know what I mean? They're absolute friggin' hammers, and it just comes down to what people enjoy and what they prefer. That's all.
Yeah.
So not everyone has the means to have a big ass expensive bass boat. Not everyone has the means to throw a kayak in the back of a truck. It's just
or
what
the
it is.
time. I love that Debo brought that up. The time, because the ability to go and throw a line in having 90 minutes and be like, yeah, I fished today, could be enough, to make it worth your efforts.
Yep. I mean, in the end, right now, it doesn't matter about what means we are doing it, but we're all in the same community. We're all fishermen. We need to be, it's a small community that there's so much drama within it right now.
Oh yeah.
In like we need to kind of cut those strings and stop that. And so there's no reason we just need to find those opportunities and those reasons to kind of like stay together and coming together, in the community versus continuously, throwing fucking acid in the face of it.
It's crazy. And, you mentioned the, throwing the wake and whatnot. That literally does not bother me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people that pull up anchor and then they want to fish on top of you.
Sure.
The bass guys that are passing through. A lot of time for the type of fishing I'm doing anyway, you're stirring up the water. You're making things move. I don't know if I don't know how many of you guys catfish like I do, but the barge bite when we're on the river. There's when you got a big ass barge hauling ass down river, it turns into an ocean.
Yeah,
but it's that water churning is stirring up bait on the bottom, and I fish a couple canals where the lake lice pass through.
Oh, so that'll trigger it.
Yeah, they stir that bottom up, and then fish are going to come in to catch what's coming up.
It's the same way with the salmon up north. There's a couple holes where it's just boats in there, and if there's like a boat leaving, for some reason, the other people will be like, "Yo, like get on the throttle for a second."
What's burning?
And they'll be like, get on the throttle for a second, and next thing you know, everyone's rods are go down because again it stirs the fish. They start moving and whatever.
And on those big bodies of water, them fish are used to the traffic. They're used to the boats. They're used to the geese.
It's true.
The water is constantly churning, and they're used to that. You might spook them out of a spot for a minute, but you give them 15, 20 minutes, they're going to come back home.
Yep.
True.
Exactly.
And especially that style of fishing too. Like when you're catfishing and you're throwing a piece of bait and you're letting it soak and you're waiting for that fish to find it. It's a different beast than if you're throwing a rattle trap, Sure. And you're covering water.
I'm usually tossing big oily, skipjack or cut buffalo and something. And you want that scent. Oh, I love skipjacks are another story. I love catching them bastards. They are literally beasts. I mean, you get a 20-incher, man, they will smoke a jig.
Really?
Yes, they are actually, they're jumpers. They will tail dance and everything else. Them things are sweet. They're fun to catch when you're just out bait hunting or nothing's hitting but them.
Oh, so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I did not expect this to end up being like the love fest of anglers, like coming together. Like I really didn't.
That's great.
I think it's fantastic. I think it proves a point. I think like we can, for sure, regardless of method, like if we're respectful of one another, I think there's absolutely a place in it for everybody. And let's be honest, if you're like me and you want to fish with people, invite a bank angler on your boat to go and fucking have a good time, man. So John and Dave will be talking because I'll be in your area.
It's when we decide to do the electronics roundtable where we're
that's gonna get bloody.
I'll fucking kill you if you.
I have my own electronics. Believe it or not, I actually carry attached to one of my fishing bags. I have one of the deeper two.
You like it?
The thing is sweet. I don't trust it. I don't trust it for finding fish.
Sure.
I use it for two things: water temperature, because it gives me the water temperature,
and structure,
and depth finder and structure.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the bank somewhere and I want to just see where the channel is, I chuck that bastard out there and send it on its way, and I just watch it on my phone.
And I'll be honest with you,
I'm curious about them.
Yeah, me too. I've even considered it. I was like, for me, a big thing is like, I'll look at maps, but if I just had the depth and could find like those drop-offs and stuff, it would be game over. I've been doing this this whole year almost on Navionics maps alone.
That's what I do.
I use Navionics too.
Yeah,
I just look for something different. I'll look for boat ramps and then look for the associated holes. And then just using Google Maps too. Like if you see a big drop-off and that you got that rock spill there. If you pull up that Navionics map and you can find that spot, you can associate the hole with that rock laydown.
That's freaking awesome, man.
I got a spot on the Charles that, I mean, if I had something like that little sonar you're talking about, I've been fishing it for so long, but I don't know how deep it is. I mean, I try to figure it out depending on how fast my bait's dropping, but I mean, that's still not very consistent.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm dying to either go out there with somebody that's got a depth finder on their kayak, or get the deeper, or I mean, I almost want to buy it just for that, so I know how deep that spot is. I have no idea.
It is.
That thing is pretty sweet.
It is. I've heard very good things about it. Although, actually, in this episode that's going to drop, our guest this week is John Scungio from JCS Marine. We talk about what we're going to do for my electronics in the interview for this, where things are possibly going to go. So it could be kind of interesting. But
John's the man. He's such a good dude.
Dude, he is the man.
I was texting him day before yesterday, I think, about some shit I got planned for the Icon for the upcoming season.
Nice. So. Well, I'll tell you what. I texted you about that. We might have been wrangled in for so there will be a Jigs and Bigs live going on.
Yeah, he mentioned it to me, and I was like, talk to Bobby. I was like, get it situated.
Yeah, for sure. Once he's ready, that's going to be one hell of a situation. But it's funny because like electronics are like when I never fished with electronics till I got into my kayak. And I was using just a simple Hook Lowrance, what is it? The one with the side scan. And like I've used side scan a bit, but I really am excited about in the boat utilizing side scan and just like scanning these bodies of water that I fish regularly to get a real good rough idea of like, here's some stumps and some rocks. You know,
side scan's my jam, dude. Side scan my 360.
I still have the Lowrance Hook 5 split sitting on my shelf that was supposed to go on my kayak.
On the kayak? So I do feel, John, I feel like Cabela's has shafted you 100%, man.
So, I've been talking to Kayak Mike a little bit. He's one of the guys that runs some of the OCT tournaments, and he works with Raccoon Creek Outfitters, so he's kind of got me onto the new canoe thing. So it's just a matter of putting money in the right place, or I could just be like Joe and say fuck it and toss the money to the wind to see what happens.
Damn right. Has he had you looking at the U10?
I can't. It might be. I can't remember.
It's a relatively new platform, and for what you do, it would be ideal only because it's got ridiculous width, so it's super stable.
I think that's the one. Yeah, because I think Kayak Mike and I think Ryan Bortz from Blue Collar Catfishing uses it too, and it's got a swivel seat. He could turn 360 on that.
Yep, it is
and
nice.
They've got rod holders out of the back, and it's kind of sweet.
It's kind of like buying like a Swiss Army knife that doesn't have all the tools in it yet, but you could pick them all. That's kind of what that. And I was amazed with it. The last Expo season, I was at the Springfield Sportsman Show, and I was demoing it for what was it? The New Hampshire outfitter out there. I forget the name of it because I'm a little drunk.
Justin Johnston just hooked up with Raccoon Creek too. Kayak Catfish. He just hooked up with them too and got a new kayak.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, he was a Hobie guy for like a long time.
Yeah, Well, he was also what was the other one?
And didn't Hobie just get sold? There was some rumblings about that, like about there being an acquisition with Hobie.
I think it's still just rumblings.
It might be. It might be. Who knows? Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see where it goes.
It's funny because like the reason why I think the kayak world and you know, I mean, like if we're putting like a final stamp on this whole conversation, I think that it's the kayak sort of circle is fantastic because of the low barrier of entry to get into it. So you could get into a Sun Dolphin, or you could get into one of these more economical kayaks to at least get you off of the bank. And I don't think that there's an angler out there that wouldn't advise that would be a great option, just to be able to experiment and fuck around with that. But the reality of it is you can lose your shirt rigging out a kayak to fish as one person. But you can also lose your shirt. You could get into a boat at a low enough price point if you're willing to deal with the cesspool of like Facebook Marketplace or whatever in order to find it, you know, figure it out. You know, versus is it worth it to go and finance something, regardless of it being a fully rigged kayak or a fully rigged boat? Like the options are there, I think, for everybody. You know,
and I think that's the word for me on that is versatility.
Versatility, yeah, man. I would think
a lot of things you can do
for what you do, John. I would highly recommend a boat about like the size of what I've got.
Yeah,
like, super versatile. I'm telling you, dude.
If I told you what I really want,
I
want
center console.
I want a big ass Sea Arc. I don't know if you follow Spencer Bauer at all, River Certified, but his is fucking awesome.
I'll bet you. I'll take a look. You know what? Let's plan that, man. Let's do an Ohio trip because I love tacos and Maria's sounds perfect. So let's go and we'll send it. We'll do an Ohio River trip or the Great Miami or whatever you suggest, and we'll go and we'll put some rough fish on that boat.
Some premier channel catfishing. Sandusky Bay is the move.
Dude, yes. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Whether you want to drag it or you just want to send it right off the bank, off of one of the piers. Dude. I've caught a lot of channel cats, and they're a different animal in Sandusky Bay. They are some bastards, I will tell you that much.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that there's options for everybody, you know. And I will say, if there's one benefit to fishing on the bank, it's that you have more money
for tackle.
I will say that much. You have more money for tackle if you're a bank angler.
More money, more problems. My kids have been eating ramen for 6 months. So
fair. You know what I mean?
Not in the boat.
Not in the boat. They're not allowed in the boat.
Not in the boat. No, definitely not. How do you make ramen in an espresso maker? I don't understand.
I don't know, but some of the videos I've seen, you might be able to make a boat out of ramen.
You probably could. My God. This is absolutely awesome, guys. Does anybody have any like last words they want to chime in and make some kind of a point before we wrap up?
Not really, man.
Anybody?
This is cool. This is really cool.
Man, thanks for having us.
Dude, this was absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to do the next one. I mean, they're intended to be fun. They're intended to be like, this is, you go into any New England bar on like a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, and you're going to find a bunch of disgruntled old men complaining about something. It might be football. It might be their marital situation. It might be whatever. But I feel like this is like the quintessential New England weekend right here in the winter, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these I'll be able to participate in because the beauty is I work 3 days a week, but those 3 days are Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh yeah,
and they're 12-hour shifts, but money talks. So
for sure, 100%.
That's why we do it.
And I could be a little bit flexible now that I've got my Mondays wide open. We could do this on a Monday evening. I'd be all right with that, or a morning. You know,
that is the other upside is having Monday through Thursday off to do whatever the hell I want.
The fishing pressure is super low.
Yeah,
that's nice. Definitely. All right. Well,
it's great to meet you guys. Sorry about that, Bobby, but I think Dave, if you hit us up if you ever want to jump on the boat or whatever.
Definitely, man.
Hell yeah, Dave.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
I don't think if you're I don't live that far from you guys. I don't think. I mean, I'm in the Attleboro area.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
I'm in Brookfield now, but we fish
All right.
from here to the Cape. So
Yeah, I mean, I have, like I'm going out to the Berkshires tomorrow to go ice fishing. I have no problem traveling.
Yeah, baby.
all right,
Nice.
Well, we'll hit you up.
If by chance you're going to Pontusic, watch out for that hole that truck fell in because it's going to be thin in that spot.
Yeah, don't go to that.
Where I'm going.
Don't
worry, I'm not taking my truck out on the
drive
ice.
your truck out
That's
there.
smart.
No.
Well, I would say there's already an open hole there.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was gonna, I mean, there's
You run a
brand new
square bill
structure out
easy.
there to fish.
Yeah, you can cast that. You can flip that fucking hole.
Oh man, that's fucking nuts.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You guys are awesome, man. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, guys. We'll be back. And I've got that interview with John from JCS Marine. You guys do not want to miss out. We have an awesome conversation. And there are things that are going to be happening with the implication, including electronics and trailer upgrades. The trailer upgrades I am really excited about. The electronics, your boy's about to get nerdy as hell. Get ready. The glasses are going to come back on. I'm going to be staring at that screen, figuring things out and making things happen. More jigs and bigs coming up after this. We'll see you guys. It is a frigid morning here in Western Massachusetts with a temperature right now 19 degrees, and I'm fucking over it. But the one thing that got me out of bed nice and early today, other than the domestic duties that I've got, is I've got John Scungio here from JCS Marine in the house with us. I'm excited about this because there's a couple of things. There's a couple of New England businesses that I specifically have a connection to, and it's all got to do with that 17-foot-long hunk of aluminum in my backyard right now, the Lund that I picked up over at Hank's Marine. But John and JCS, they're going to be doing all the custom stuff, so this is going to really be like the true beef boat that it was meant to be. John, welcome to the show. How you doing this morning, buddy?
Good, man. Thank you.
This is awesome, man, because the timing for this recording couldn't be any better. Because just within the last year, to give a little bit of like reference here, just within like the last year, I only really kind of discovered JCS at the Fishing Expo last year, where you had, I think it was a champion that you had on display, like from the 90s.
Yeah, 97, 202 champion.
And that's your like bread and butter, is that like, or that's, I guess if I want to say there's like a specialty, it's like your restoration ability, but also like you had some updates in that boat as well. And it caught everybody's eye. Literally every single person I talked to, they kind of knew I was looking at boats, and they're like, you got to take a look at this champion, man. This dude does some amazing work. And then I come to find out, you know who the fuck is Joe Brown from like forever ago. We know all these other people all in between, Matt Thayer from Klondike Custom Creations. And I was blown away at this setup that you had. And then, we fast forward from there about 6 months, and I purchased my boat, and it only made sense that we're going to take this thing the distance, give it the real JCS workover, because I don't know, for our listeners, if you haven't been on, Facebook or something, when John's got a boat that's done and it's up for sale, take a look at the detail. Every dollar that's listed, it's worth absolutely everything he's asking for there, man. Some of these things are amazing. John, why don't we kind of talk, because there's a bunch of questions I've never asked you intentionally, because I wanted to do this for the interview. So let's get like the general sort of stuff here out of the way. Like talk to me about the outdoors, how you got into the outdoors, who it was that introduced you to fishing, how you got into boats, and kind of walk us through the story of how we got to where we are right now.
I mean, I grew up fishing. I think I was 12. Mm-hmm. 11 or 12, got my first job at a marina right here on Johnson's Pond.
Oh, no kidding.
Just gassing up boats, selling bait. And the owner of that marina, he had an old, at the time it was brand new champion.
Yep.
And took me fishing in that boat, and that was it. I was done. And then moving forward over the years, basically found out once I bought my first glass boat, which happened to have been an 84 champion, that I actually got my hands back on, and it's here. I couldn't afford to pay a marina to fix it. So I had to learn how to fix it myself really quick.
There you go.
And it's just snowballed since then.
No, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. You do amazing work. Now, you're located in Rhode Island, but you're not far. I mean, Rhode Island is like, it's just the Massachusetts second cousin. It's like right there. It takes me from all the way out where I am, only about like maybe an hour to get down to you. But you've done a lot of different stuff. Like, let's talk about some of the boats that you put together. Like, let's talk a little bit about that Lund that you picked up. It was a pro angler bass, right? That you had picked up, and then you had sort of retooled everything. Walk us through that, because you recently had that up for sale. Is that gone now, or is that still available?
It's still available. That's available through Hanks Marine.
Beautiful.
That was a demo boat, kind of try to get some of the bass guys to see there's other options out there other than the glass boats. You're going to fish big water. I mean, that boat's an absolute tank.
Yeah, it really is.
A tank. And it still fishes really shallow when you want to, which is kind of amazing for a boat that size. Basically, we got that as a boat motor trailer. Mm-hmm. We tried to keep the electronics simple, but over the top at the same time. So we did the Apex 19 up front, Apex 16 at the console, Mega Live with the target lock, 360, lithium batteries, way more battery power than you would ever need.
Oh, yeah.
Jack plate, 10-foot Raptors.
Yep.
I mean, the boat's just rigged and ready to rock.
I love that, man. And it's a good looking boat, and everything that I've seen come out of your shop is ridiculously clean, like meticulous detail. So if you're looking for a boat, you're in the market, like a business like JCS Marine is great to know, because like he said, you go in and you might say, okay, so this is what I'm looking for. Maybe you've got a big picture that you want to kind of dial in. Well, you can go in and buy, boat motor trailer, get your payment to where it's reasonable, and then kind of work your way into the ideal build for whatever it is that you want to do. Like, especially with my boat, I'm a weird guy. I literally want to be able to do everything. I want to be able to go into the smallest, tiniest bodies of water and microfish, but I also want to be able to go and handle some chop. If I go up to like St. Lawrence or something like that, I want to be able to handle some stuff on some larger water. So I like to kind of have it be able to play both ways. But the thing that makes me unique is that my boat, it was all about making content. So I needed a wider platform. So I had more of a stable area to get, footage for all of this content, whether it be recording audio and same thing with power and things like that. Let's talk about some of the options that folks have when they're updating their boats. Like, what's one of the most popular upgrades that you see come through the shop?
I'd say electronics upgrades are huge.
Yeah.
Second to that, I'd still say shallow water anchors are probably second.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the older boats, wasn't part of the package deals.
Yep. That's true. Yeah.
But for around here, I think shallow bodies of water that we have locally, I think that's probably more important than even spot lock on a trolling motor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could see that.
But I mean, we see everything. I mean, everything comes through. Batteries are big.
Yep. Yeah. Especially if electronics are big, you got to be able to power them.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that I've seen you do, and your work there is amazing, is the EVA floors.
Oh, yeah.
That is, absolutely amazing. And like when I say, especially like that's what I'm saying, clean work, take a look at John's EVA floors. They look unbelievable. And like it's just got to be such an upgrade when you're fishing, especially like, those guys that like to fish barefoot. I can't do that. I can't. I know I'll step on a treble hook laying down somewhere. So I'm not that guy. But though there are folks out there that love it. Like an EVA floor, foam floor is just, it's got to be like walking on a cloud, Yeah.
And anyone who's got doubts, go fish for a day out of a boat with a quality foam floor, not your Amazon.
Yeah.
Off the shelf stuff, a quality cut piece. Fish for a day, and you will not want to fish out of a carpet boat ever again.
Yeah.
Period.
No, that makes sense, man. And it's nice because it cleans up well. It's great for your back. Like there's a lot. I've toyed around with the idea. You know, I mean, I like vinyl. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy with it because I can get it as slimy as I want and then just clean it right up, and it's nice. But EVA, it's like, you know, it is really sweet. And even the EVA I've seen on some of the step systems for the trailers. A lot of people don't think about that stuff. That's a nice little upgrade right there. Plus it gives you a little bit of traction.
Oh yeah.
You know, that is really, really nice. Let's talk about, so you recently, like before we started recording, we were talking, and there's been some upgrades over at JCS. Some essentially a brand new shop. Why don't you discuss how the transition was getting into there, kind of talk a little bit about that, because you have a grand opening coming up down the road where everybody's going to get to see this. But what's the big picture look like?
So big picture, you know, we basically have a 7,000 square foot showroom that we're going to have available to use.
That's awesome.
You know, and the end game will be new and used boats in that showroom. Probably leaning more towards custom built used boats.
Yep.
I really feel like custom boats are gaining in popularity, especially with the cost of new boats.
I agree with you.
We have a full tackle shop. We will have live bait.
That's awesome.
You know, rods, reels. So, you know, you drop your boat off early spring, all your stuff's at home. You come pick up your boat, and it's beautiful outside, and you want to go fishing.
Yeah.
You know, grab a couple rods, grab a couple reels, some line, and you're good to go right out the door from here.
That's pretty awesome, man. That's great. Or even better, you're getting some stuff done, you forgot something, and you're just like, you know, I forgot my rattle trap box or whatever. You can grab a couple for the road. That's smart thinking because it's all in one place.
Right.
That's great, dude. That's freaking huge. So you just moved in. What were the growing pains like moving over? Like, I'm sure it was just chaos.
So it's still chaos.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be trickling into here pretty much all of December.
Yep.
And as we all know, contractors, not to fault anyone in particular, just things happen.
Yeah.
Parts don't show up. Trucks don't show up with lumber.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen. So we basically had this past weekend to empty the old shop.
Oh, wow.
And just get everything into the new shop. And, you know, we had a bunch of friends showed up.
That's awesome.
Can't thank them enough for that.
Yep.
And we literally in 7 hours emptied the old shop.
No shit. That's
all the equipment, all the toolboxes, all the office stuff, all the banners. I mean, clean slate, empty, 7 hours. And it was a big deal. Everybody just put their head down and got work done. And then we're still setting up, obviously, in the new shop. Because, you know, where we are, we have 2 actual workshops now.
Yep.
We'll have our, I call it dirty shop. That's where all the, you know, trailer work, glass work, gel coat.
Oh, yeah.
Stripping boats before we do an EVA foam floor.
Yep.
Will all happen in there. We have our clean room, which is going to be our ceramic coatings, finish work, electronics, stereo systems, wraps.
Yep. Then
we also have the showroom, and then we'll have the tackle shop is separate from all of that.
That's amazing, man. It's like a little complex in Rhode Island right there. Everything you need, you know, to get out there.
All under one roof.
That's awesome. I think like people really love that, like a one-stop shop when you can go and get pretty much everything that you need. And the best part is it's a local business. You know what I mean? You're locally owned. That's a big deal. Let's get more into fishing as far as for you personally. Like what type of an angler do you like to put yourself? Like what type of category do you put yourself into primarily? What are you out there fishing for?
I primarily am, tournament bass guy.
Yep.
I'm absolutely addicted to smallmouth. But I'm in Rhode Island, so when the opportunity knocks to go out and go after some giant tuna, I'm going.
How do you, I mean, I think everybody who lives as close to the ocean as you do, you need to get out on the salt. And, you know, I got to tell you, like, just this week, I mainly don't fish saltwater because of the distance, because I've got a good couple of hours at least, you know, to be able to just go and do a day of fishing. But I'll tell you what, if I were to harvest more fish, they'd 100% be saltwater fish. And my wife, for whatever reason, my wife is not a big fan of eating fish regularly. And the only way she likes it generally is deep fried, battered and deep fried. She made this baked cod this week, and every time she makes fish, it's out of this world. This was fantastic. I couldn't believe she enjoyed it. So I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem. We might end up getting the old implication a little salty and see if we can harvest. But do you have a preferred saltwater species that you like?
I'd say tuna.
Yeah.
The fight's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's anything that really honestly can compare. As far as, you know, your tournament stuff, what kind of an angler are you there? Are you more of a power fisherman, or do you get finessey when you need to?
I'd say it's a pretty good balance.
Yep. That's good.
You know, so me and my buddy Shane, we fished the Reynolds Trail.
Oh, okay.
And I think you need to be a little bit finessey, and a power fisherman throughout that trail.
Yep.
And that's a great trail for anyone that's got a teammate that wants to go fish a team trail. But that said, I'd rather be flipping heavy grass.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
If I could all the time, but you know, up north, smallmouth, however I gotta catch them, I will.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially smallies, like whatever they want, I'm going to throw. Whatever the hell they want, you know, pound for pound, they are unbelievable fighters and just a blast.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love it, man. That's freaking badass. As far as like what do your confidence baits look like? Like, what's the short list of presentations that you're like, I can generally rely on these to get it done?
I'd say that swim baits is so vague when you say swim bait.
Oh, totally.
I will say it anyway. Swim baits, chatterbait. And a lot of really small swim baits on a drop shot, long leader. Yeah, that's I actually cleaned house fishing at Champlain. This was a few years ago, and with that same presentation, like just a super small finesse swim bait on a drop shot, just dragging that weight, you know, just having the tail kick just a little bit is enough to get it done. But you're right. Oh, yeah. Like with swim baits, that could mean that, you know, 2-inch long easy shiner, or it could mean a huge Huddleston, you know, right. and there's a whole lot in between. It's funny. I recently this year first fooled around with an umbrella rig for the first time, and I'm hooked. I bought a few of them just to have more on hand, and I was blown away. There's this company called Bass Dope, and they make a baby umbrella rig. It's a 3-arm rig, and in Mass, you're restricted. You can only have 2 hooks on one. So I have a dummy that I put up on there. In other states, like oddly enough, in Connecticut, there's no regulation. You can go all 5 if you have 5. So it's just amazing. Like, this is the first bait where consistently, and I think this one day that I was out fishing it, I had 5 bites. They were all decent fish, and it was one of those situations where it just knocked slack on the line immediately. Race to catch up to it, set the hook, just absolutely amazing. And I'm talking like, I caught a good-sized rainbow trout. I caught a 5-pound largemouth out of a spot that has the worst reputation for large fish, and that was probably probably my favorite catch of the year, just because of how shitty that pond is in the big picture. Have you doubled up on it yet?
I haven't doubled up, and people talk about that all the time. They're like, well, you can catch multiples on one of those. I'm excited to see how that works, especially now I'm fishing the Connecticut River so much more often that I think it'll be pretty cool. Throw that sucker around in like early spring, and I think it's going to do all right. If we, We have so much ice, dude, on the Connecticut River right now. I don't even want to bother launching the boat. You get out to the main river, and there's just sections where you just got ice just chunked up all over the place. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man.
Right. Yeah.
It really is. Last winter, we got off so light, I feel. It was so mild. But like, I remember New Year's Eve being real cold. New Year's Eve 23 being like super cold. But like for the most part, the rest of the winter was not that bad.
Right. Right.
Unreal. So we had mentioned earlier talking about like ice fishing and stuff, and you're not big on ice fishing, and I'm really not either. But we had a story recently pop up where an angler had lost a vehicle because he drove it out onto the ice, and I it couldn't have been more than like maybe 4 or 5 inches of ice at the time, and he drove the truck out there and he lost it. That's crazy. Have you done any ice fishing previously, or just kind of dabbled?
I used to go when I was a kid, when it seemed like we always had good ice to go ice fishing.
We definitely did, yeah.
And then I got ruined. I moved up to New Hampshire years back, and some buddies up there invited me to go. And, I'm dressed for the Arctic, and they get out of their trucks in T-shirts. And I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And, they're going in a hut with satellite TV, wood stove. I'm like, oh, now this is ice.
This is different. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And since then, I haven't been once since I've been back here. And a couple of the boys in the shop want to go Sunday. So I'm big against fat guys on the ice, like I said, but I'm going to give it a go.
No, I think you gotta send it. And I've said this before. Like, I want to book one of those trips where I can get like one of those shacks for like a weekend or something like that, and just go and ice fish the hell out of it and see what's up. Basically, just like a little. Think about it as like just a little getaway. If I catch fish, wonderful. If not, what it's just solid is just a time in my own thoughts. I'd be all about that, and I'd do some traveling for it too. I should. The thing is, that stuff books up like in July. Oh, yeah. It's booked up way out in advance. I should really start looking at like the 26th season now and then try and put something together. But yeah, I think that is one hell of a way to do it. And you're right. Like, yeah, you get out there and you're just like, I'm prepared for all this, but you get into a nice heated element,
different story.
Yeah, it's a whole other beast, man. That is, I'll bet you I could convince the wife to go out for that. I'll bet
Next November, I want to get up to the Pulaski.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny. There's so many people that have told me, they're like, you got to try that. You got to try that. And then some friends of mine have fished it. And that's not my style of fishing. Like shoulder to shoulder, like everybody on the bank, like insanity. But
I would go on one of the drift boats if I go. I can't do the shoulder to shoulder thing.
I think you said it right there. I think that's the way to do it. I'm all about it. I love it. So let's talk about, so when you're going out to fish, this is like one of those random off the wall questions, but when you're going out to fish, like what are you listening to get hyped up along the way? Like, what are you going? Some folks listen to podcasts. Other folks listen to a specific playlist of music or a genre or something like that. What's going on in your mind, John? Like tournament day.
That's a tough one. I mean, every boat that I typically run is going to have a pretty obnoxious sound system in it.
Yeah.
That's how I am. Before takeoff, I mean, once I hear my boat number, there's definitely going to be some heavy metal banging out of the boat. And as the day progresses, it'll go, heavy metal to reggae.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm off the wall with music selection.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that, like, I used to say all the time, like, oh, I'm not going to listen to music while I'm, fishing or anything like that. I have, I've actually got playlists put together that as like a reminder, I'll play in the background. This I did all the time, more in the kayak than anything else. But if it was a really slow bite and I had to force myself to slow down, I'd have like a playlist of like slow blues, And then I would, if I had to like keep it going, I'd have something a little bit more up tempo. And I was just like, all right, cool. The bite's really fast. I got to keep going. Because I have a tendency, actually have a tendency to slow down more times than I necessarily need to, which is sometimes great for getting a bite, but sometimes not when you're looking for that reaction. And it's nice, sometimes you're playing something with a high, beat count, and you're just like, all right, we're going to, burn this spinnerbait or this rattle trap and see what we can get done. And that's what they want, No, I think that's freaking badass. And it's so funny too. Like I get a kick out of like when I'm out, I'll be out on the river or something. I'll hear somebody playing some music. A lot of time it's a wreck boat, and I'll hear like whatever they're playing. I'm just like, make my own assumptions. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then sometimes if you're having a good day, the playlist will change because the mood on the boat will change.
Absolutely.
Like with me, if you don't hear anything, that's a problem.
Yeah.
that means that somebody fucked up with the net or the gear was lost overboard or something like that. But if it's quiet, that's generally never a good sign.
Right.
Unreal.
Well, I can tell you, if I pull up to weigh in blasting some good music and there's like one rod on the front deck.
Oh, it was a great day.
I got a bag.
Yep. That's the best. That's you go in with all the confidence of the world and, let the weigh-in just kind of happen. That's awesome, man. And I think like if I don't really get too into tournaments necessarily, other than the stuff that we run, like the multi-species scavenger hunt, that's a fun one. This year, we're doing a slot limit tournament every single month. So we'll have a Saturday slot limit tournament. It's probably going to be, I'm thinking the third Saturday of every month. We'll do a nationwide slot limit tournament, which is nice because it lets an angler from the Northeast or the Midwest compete against somebody in Florida, California, or Texas. Those fish over 17 inches aren't going to count. So it's just, you just got to be able to get numbers. And that's kind of what the whole idea is. Does make it tricky on, because we allow, it's not just boats, it's boats, kayaks, and bank anglers. And I'm throwing a little twist in this year. I'm going to allow people to change bodies of water. We did that with the last slot limit tournament, and it worked out kind of nice because then you had this extra element to strategy. You're like, oh, I was planning on fishing here. This has a population of fish that fit the mold, but they're not biting. Let's go ahead and move it. And I actually think it's the bank anglers that are going to have the advantage because they just jump in the car and go.
Right.
You got a kayak. I feel like that's taking you even longer to get out of the water and ready to go than if you have a boat.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge. Some folks have it down to a science where they're like, yep, kayak goes in, everything stays right where it is, boom, we're on our way. But that's freaking badass, man. How old were you when you got into tournament fishing?
I think I was 11 or 12 when I was working at the marina. The owner took me on a couple Wednesday night jackpot tournaments.
Oh, no shit. That's awesome.
Me and my dad converted a John boat into a little tournament type rig. We couldn't go anywhere but half mile down the lake. But we actually won a couple of those Wednesday nighters out of that little boat because all we could do is fish. We couldn't run around the lake.
You know what? That is a strategy. When you're just like, this is where I'm at. I'm not going to waste any time. We're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
There's fish here. If we can find them and we can get them to bite, we'll be in business. We can do what we do versus running around looking for spots that aren't really there. Always second guessing. The area that you're fishing. That's the worst. That's part of the reason why I don't really get seriously into tournaments. Is that like it's such a mental game.
Oh yeah.
Like it really
big time highs and big.
It is, yeah. Big time highs, big time lows. Freaking bananas, man. So this is like, again, like I'm a business guy. I have a local business. I love supporting local businesses. This question isn't like just a fat guy question. This question actually is an opportunity to promote local businesses in your area. So one of my favorite things to do is, regardless if it's celebrating a great day of fishing or, like these are those days where I'm out there at dawn and I'll fish until maybe 10 or 11 and then might call it. It might be a great day, or it might be just like I need to go punish my body with, whatever food. And I love a late breakfast or an early lunch, and a local mom and pop area, a mom and pop spot where you can get just quality eats and kind of review your day, maybe go through what went wrong and how you can. That's where the real learning comes from. Where is a spot that you prefer to go to for something like that, whether it's a breakfast spot, lunch spot, whatever?
Around here would be Toast and Tap.
Okay.
A good friend of mine owns that. It's great breakfast, lunch place. And also Dan's Place, which is phenomenal pizza and really full menu place.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm all about that. I really am. There's spots right over by where Joe's at, where there's small pond, and there's a little restaurant. I forget what it's called, like Lakeside 30 something or whatever. And they've got slips right on the water. And I've never had an absolute garbage time fishing this spot. Like, I've gone and I've caught decent fish almost every time I've been there. It might be one decent fish, but every time I've gone, it's been great. And the last time I was out there on the boat, I was out there with Becca, and we just laid into so many different species, and like even the bluegills we were getting with like distended foreheads, like big fish, And I was fishing BFS, and I was like, I wish this place was open. Like, I just want to have a celebratory beer, man. We're killing it. And so one of these days I'm going to have to take advantage of it. But, I'm a big believer in fishing in the outdoors is like looking at the whole experience. So, like we talk here about like tournaments and things like that. And like a good example is the Kayak Adventure Series that Drew Gregory has going on. This is more of like a hang than it is like a serious tournament. You get some real serious anglers that are like serious about competing, but once they're off the water, it's like the mood totally changes. It's a big party this whole weekend. And I think that like you can really make your fishing trips, even if it absolutely sucks, create some kind of a backup plan. You can do it. Like I'm planning on going to Jersey, and I don't know what this weather's necessarily going to look like. What I'm hoping is we don't get any rain. That's going to be the worst in this kind of cold. Like that, I don't want to deal with. And if it's something that's going to keep me off the water, I'm coming up with some ideas of spots. So like I hit up a couple of people that are local in that area saying like, hey, what's a good alternative if I'm like, I got to find something to do, to occupy some time or whatever like that. I mean, obviously there's going to be plenty of sitting in the woods, but and there's only so much firewood. That's the biggest issue. So it'll be kind of interesting. Let's talk.
If it snows, you have to go on the water.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's possible that could be the situation. I'm thinking we're probably not going to see any rain. I'm thinking if we're going to get any precip, it's probably going to be snow.
Then you have to be on the water.
I've only fished while snow. I've never done it on the kayak. Obviously never in the boat yet. But I've bank fished when it's snowing before, and there's something that just unlocks. Like the fish react. And I'm not 100% sure exactly if it's like the pressure swaying one way or the other or what it is. But yeah, they get, immediately turned on, and the bite seems to get better.
Yeah. It's like they all get angry.
And that's what I like, especially when we're dealing with like pickerel, where we're headed. I fished this spot before in like early May, and the number of pickerel, it was ridiculous. But I love those fish. They're super aggressive. They're great in cold water. They'll bite stuff in cold water. Where the bass, I don't expect to see any largemouth. None.
Right.
And this other spot that I had gone to, we had fished for snakehead. I don't think we're going to get a bite there. Obviously, those fish are going to eat, but the likelihood of them eating and, chasing anything is pretty small. But you never know,
Right.
I could catch a giant snakehead on a tiny little drop shot, or BFS, small leader type stuff. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? Let's talk about you got the expo coming up, and that's coming up at the end of January, and you're doing a collab booth with Hanks, right?
Yep. So I mean, we'll have our own booth, and we're going to be right there next to Hanks. Yeah, we're bringing some stuff.
Nice.
We're bringing 2 boats. Of course, neither one of them are done yet, so it's probably going to be down to the wire.
Of course.
But one in particular, they're both crazy boats. One is a 1991 Bullet.
Oh, no shit. Wow.
That we've basically, it's a brand new boat.
Yep.
With a 1991 title.
It's awesome.
It's record, new stringers. I mean, new transom, all new gel coat. It's insane what we've put into that boat so far.
Wow, that's nuts. That's like from the guts outward.
Oh yeah, it's a brand new boat.
Yeah,
it's literally a brand new boat.
It's amazing, man. And like with a boat like that, you're buying. It's all brand new. All that stuff is brand new, but you're buying that 1991 personality, you know?
Right. It's we joke about it with a couple of our other customers.
Yeah.
We're on another podcast, and they're basically saying it's the hot rods of the bass boat industry.
Yeah, really. That's probably the best description right there, because you get a lot, like in the car culture, you see a lot of people who are just like, it's like they're living in the past, taking their skill and applying it to this older model of vehicle and updating it. And there's a certain level of style that people really like that. So that's pretty cool, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I will actually be up there right nearby you. I'm going to be in the Hanks booth. I'm taking up a screen. We're going to do, some video footage for, some stuff where I'm going to show off a couple of things. I think I might even have like a little online quiz for people to take, which could be pretty fun. And it's going to be a good time. Are you guys doing any other shows, or is this the one to see you at?
This is the show to see us at.
Yep.
We're not going to do anything else this year. Dan puts on an awesome show.
He does. I think it's
can't be beat.
Yeah, it really is. It's like if you fish or have thought of fishing, this is the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And we see a lot of the same folks here because we're pretty in touch with a lot of our listeners. We'll see a lot of folks, and it's just like it's a little bit like that high school reunion in a way. Like you see, I might only see these guys at the expos, but I'm going to know them, and it's going to be handshakes and hugs and stuff, and it's great.
Yep, absolutely.
That's freaking awesome, man. Well, yeah, if you're considering checking out the New England Fishing Expo, go and check it out. Check out JCS Marine's booth. It's always, if not for anything else, even if you're not in the market for a boat necessarily, take a look, because you'll see the possibilities. And especially when you're looking at a boat that's over 30 years old, that is essentially brand new, it really puts in reference what you can do in the customization world and set that kind of stuff up. That's awesome. So let's talk about some plans for the implication. Like we talked about a couple of different things. One of them being electronics, and I am so open to suggestion with electronics, probably to a fault. I'll see something and I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. But again, I want to keep this kind of bare bones. So you and I have talked a little bit about electronics previously, and we've kind of gone back and forth with a couple of different, plans necessarily. Let's leave that element kind of out of it right now, except I do want to throw this one over there. A lot of people say,
hey, Bobby, are you going to go with forward-facing sonar?
Not right now. Yes, eventually, but not right now. I don't necessarily see that there's a need for it right now, but I would say probably within a year, you'll probably see it get added on there, just because I like to tinker. So we can probably put that to rest as far as like, hey, what's this deal with forward facing? I want to just know how it works, and have it in front of my face, but probably not right now. Plus, let's be honest.
Your boy's not exactly loaded.
So I got to start from the ground up. So we're talking about, obviously a console unit, and I want something, side scan is really important to me. And that's a big one. Being able to go and break down a body of water and just cruise it and come up with a plan for, future stuff. So if I'm fishing, the bite kind of sucks and it's pre-spawn, well, let me scan and find out where it might be later, where good spots might be later in the summer or something along those lines. But JCS does so much more, and we talked about some of this. So, John, go ahead and talk about like some of the things that you've got in mind that would be good additions, not only for the implication, but somebody who's just like, I have a stock trailer, I have a stock, my boat is pretty much bare bones, it's buck naked. What should we be doing with it? I know we talked about logos and stuff. Not everybody has such a nice looking logo to put on their boat, but let's dive into that a little bit.
So, I mean, from the ground up, if you're going to travel, first things first is your trailer.
Yeah.
If you got a spring ride tandem axle trailer,
yep.
Hands down, the Dexter equalizers are a must have. They completely change how a spring ride trailer will go down the road. Better tire wear, better fuel mileage, so on and so forth.
Yep.
The guys like you with a smaller single axle trailer, big time. Get rid of them little tiny skinny tires and wheels that are on it. Do a wheel and tire upgrade.
Yep.
That's almost a necessity if you're going to travel long distance.
Oh yeah. And it's funny, I didn't even think about it. Like I had done that trip to Cayuga, which wasn't a crazy drive or anything like that. I'm going to Jersey again. Here's another one. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that would be a huge upgrade for sure. Cause those little donuts, man, they'll do the job.
And the bicycle tires.
Yeah. They're super tiny. And I get it. They get the job done, and the manufacturers are like, look, we're not going to put like crazy, build these up necessarily. And if we do, we're going to add a price tag to it. But when the idea is to keep the price down low, that's what they're going to put on there. So you're right. Like that touches the road. That's for sure a big deal. Are there any other trailer mods that we talked about? I know we had mentioned the idea about doing some lighting upgrades.
Oh, yeah. If you don't have LED lights already, an LED light package, and not a custom package, just, tail lights, running lights, is a good start.
Oh, yeah.
And then we can go crazy from there with, underglow and, can get really fancy and crazy.
Oh yeah. Lights are like, in my business, when somebody asks me, they're like, oh, so do I have to get lights, for like the wedding reception package or anything? And I'm like, here, I've been saying this for like over 30 years now. Lights make the music sound better. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You put a little something in there and it makes a difference. Look at this. I've just got an asbestos filled basement behind me, but I put these fancy lights behind me. And all of a sudden, it's a happening kind of place, Yeah. I can almost negate the freaking cancer it's going to cause, Yeah.
I spent a lot of years long distance truck driver, man.
Mm-hmm.
And, the truckers that go cross country, the more lights you put on a truck, the better. And maybe to a fault, I've taken it too far with some of the boat trailers for myself.
Yeah.
But everyone seems to like it, so we run with it.
Now, one of the things that we talked about as an upgrade, and I almost took this as a challenge, but when we first talked, I think it was actually the first time you saw the boat. You were telling me, you're like, okay, so scuff up that keel, like get it roughed up really good, and I put in work. It's scuffed up real nice. And the reason is you've got an upgrade specifically, and it makes perfect sense. Even makes sense for me coming from the kayak end of things. And that's a keel guard, but not in the way that you would traditionally think of a keel guard. Explain the process for, what you've got in mind for the implication.
So with your boat and a lot of aluminum boats, a traditional keel guard's just not an option.
Yep.
You got too much of a bubble to try to stick a keel guard on.
Yeah.
So we would typically tape off a good section where we feel you need it, prep it, which is, sand it again, clean it, and then spray, professional strength, beefed up bed liner, if you will.
So it's not going anywhere.
No. Yeah, you can run that thing up on the beach.
I will.
Every time you take it out and not have a worry.
I will. That's just to check it out. I do have a nice little ding up by the bow that for the longest time I was like, because I've only washed my boat since I've had it once, and I got to get better with that. But I would, the way I park it in my driveway, like the bow is facing me when I pull up at night, and I always just kind of thought it was like the way my headlights hit it, and it looked kind of funky. No, there's a little bit of a ding in there, pretty good. When I said I was buying this boat to use it,
I meant it.
Well, that's what they're for.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not using them, what's the sense? No, that's awesome. I think that'll be a really, really big upgrade right there. I do have this idea, and I talked with a woodworker that we both know, Matt Thayer, and I have this plan. So, on the back of my boat, how on the floor of my boat, I've got those 4 spots for seats. The rear 2, I actually don't think I'm going to use those for seats probably ever, but I'm going to get a couple of pedestals. And my plan is this. I want to put a production desk on the boat, which sounds insane for such a small boat. And it's not going to be something I'm going to take out all the time. But I was talking with Matt, and I was like, I'd like to do like a really nice sealed wood production desk where I can like put my laptop or something. So one of the things that, and also like maybe like mount a couple like cup holders off to the side and things like that. I even talked to my wife. I was like, this might do some good where when we just want to go and get on the water, spend a day out there, because my wife doesn't actually like the seats in the Lund, which I can't believe. She's like, they're all right. But she's like, honestly, I'd rather lay down across the back casting deck. She's going to make a cushion that's waterproof that she can put back there to just kind of like lounge. And I'm like, go for it. Because while you're napping, I'm going to be ripping lips. That's the plan. Yeah. So it's the perfect setup. So I was talking with Matt about this idea. What do you have for like a suggestion for like power, mainly like USB power? Is that something you think I should build and run off the boat itself and just charge it when I charge those batteries? Or do you think it's a better move to look into something like a Jackery or a Blue Eddy that I bring to power all that stuff and just carry it on and off as I need it?
If it's not going to be permanent on the boat, I'd say you might as well just bring a different power source. You could rig it into the boat's power, and we could put a big, multi-position plug, if you will. So you kind of just plug in and you're good to go. Then you got another open circuit, if you will, always out there. So an external source is probably going to be your best bet for that.
That's kind of what I'm leaning at, just for the versatility alone. I did pick up, there's 2 interviews on Jigs and Bigs that I recorded on the boat using my iPad to connect to do this part of it, the online part of it, the stream. And then I would use that portable recorder and just set up with a couple of microphones. I bring my backpack and like just let it rip. And it was awesome. It was the episode I did with Bass Geek and the episode I did with Nate from Pig Jigs. And it was fantastic. The only real planning I've got to do is just make sure it's a body of water that I know, and then go and where there's cell service, and then boom, I'm good to go. But it was pretty awesome. It's like already little bits, let alone the YouTube channel and everything. There's so much going on that makes this look unbelievable. And when it's so bare bones right now. When I pull up to the ramp, when at the end of the day, I'm getting comments on the boat left and right. I can't wait till we've got some custom stuff laid out here. I'm really, really excited about that. That's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited to not use that iPad as my mapping. That's what it works great, except when I get past a certain area, I have to reposition myself because the Navionics app does not do that for you. It's not live updating. So I got to move things around, see where my location is, figure it out from there. And, it's pretty awesome, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. So we should definitely plan, to get the boat down there. You let me know when it works for you, because it sounds like down in your area, you've got quite a lot of moving parts going on right now. So you let me know whenever you're ready. Well, I'll bring it down to you.
Yeah, it'll be soon. Probably right after the show.
Perfect. That is absolutely perfect. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be pretty awesome. I do actually have a big trip coming up. I'm going to St. Clair on Easter weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going with a listener, Todd Sefton, Fishing in the Sticks. He's on Instagram. Great dude. And I don't know about you, but Easter is on 4/20.
So we're going to be smoking some hams.
That's the plan. We're going to have ourselves one hell of a time out there. It's going to be a blast. And I've always wanted to fish St. Clair, and it'll be interesting. He's already got the Airbnb laid down. It's going to be unbelievable. We're going to send it, and it's going to be great. April is going to be that. I'm telling you, this last April was the best month of fishing I've had in my life. And it was all on the kayak.
April's always great.
I'm hoping to duplicate that in the boat, maybe even to the next level, because I am fishing water that I generally don't touch with my kayak for the most part. It's good stuff. We actually have a really good roundtable coming up that we're recording this coming Saturday. Joe and I are going to get a couple of folks, different anglers from like the Jighead fam and our followers on Instagram. Probably we're going to shoot to try to get between like 4 to up to 10 other people to chime in. And we're going to have a roundtable discussion on fishing via boat versus kayak versus bank. And just talk about the advantages and the disadvantages and the preferences and everything, because everybody thinks what they do is the best for the most part. But really, and then you've got guys like me that do it all, and they're like, I love it all. I don't want to get rid of anything. Why should I ever have to do that? You know what I mean? I love to mix it up. This is awesome, John. I'm glad we were able to do this. Let's go ahead and wrap things with what I think have become like the staple 2-part question of every single interview that we do. These are the fishing stories right here. So what I'm looking for from you are 2 stories. The one where like you just absolutely killed it. It's the story that you would share with somebody if they were meeting you for the first time and they're like, oh, so you fish a little bit. That one, the moment you were most proud of on the water, something like that. And then the other one I want is where like it just didn't go right and it was sort of and it all just went to shit. And every angler has a giant amount of those stories to pick from. The most difficult is picking like the one you want to share. So why don't you go for it? Tell us a tale.
So that'll be easy because the best and the worst were literally a day apart.
Oh, that's awesome.
In the same.
Oh, really? Okay.
St. Lawrence River. It was a TBF divisional. Weather was not great, but good enough to say the heck with it. Going way out on the lake on day one. Got to where I had found some fish, and they were still there, and more. I think by like 10 o'clock, I had 25 and change in the box for 5.
Mm-hmm.
Upgraded one more time. And I said, you know what? It's getting a little sporty out here. Let's start heading back. Basically got back to close to where weigh-in was going to be, and just kind of hung out on the front deck of the boat, had a sandwich, relaxed for an hour.
Yeah.
Cruised into weigh-in and, had the lead on day one by a significant amount. And then, it was just nothing could go wrong that day. See the fish, catch the fish, forward facing, just one after the other.
Oh, that's awesome though.
And day 2, Mother Nature said, no.
Yep.
No. And we just, that was day 2 was super struggle.
Yep.
Think I ended up coming in with like 15 pounds and literally went from big lead to, I think I still ended up finishing like 5th in the tournament, but highs and lows,
I will say, like, when you hear those stories about those multiple day tournaments and you have that situation where, the conditions just flip, the one thing that makes me feel comfortable in those situations, it's only been a couple of times where I've ever done a tournament like that, is that everybody's dealing with it. Now you wonder, like, how are these anglers coping with that? Are they able to switch it up to be able to catch them when it gets tough like that? But in fact, the last time I'm thinking of, it was more of a friendly tournament. It was a group of, I think there were 10 of us, a dozen maybe, and everybody's out and the wind was just killing us this first day. And it was a real finessey, just delicate bite. Like they just weren't eating your half-ounce chatterbaits and shit like that. People were catching them on a drop shot, and I just was not able to get bit at all. Like it was ridiculous. I take that back. I'm wording that wrong. I was getting bit. I was not able to connect with any of these fish. I started counting, and it was somewhere in the field of like 50-something bites, where it was just like they just weren't eating it. And I don't know if it was like mental, where I just wasn't putting it together and figuring it out. I've since then, I think, kind of gotten things a little bit more together where I can logically say like, okay, so this is the issue with this bait. They're not getting it. Let's change it up to something that'll work. And I generally feel pretty confident being able to get the hook into them. The next day, it was like completely different conditions. Much, much more calm. We had a little bit more in terms of like, we had like crazy cloud cover the day before. This was a little bit more like partly cloudy, but I couldn't keep them off the hook if I tried to. Like it was ridiculous, everything. And it was still super finessey, but I probably caught 40 fish that day, none of which were helpful for the tournament at all. I don't think I caught a largemouth at all that day, but I was also doing the multi-species scavenger hunt, and I think I checked off like 3 boxes while I was there. So it worked out well, just not for the tournament at hand. But it's crazy like that because those multiple day things, it's like it can just switch on a dime, and you're killing it. Yeah. That's awesome. But I mean, again, if you came in 5th, I mean, that's what I'm saying, where everybody's got to deal with those same conditions. Like they're all playing the same cards. It's how do you approach it? That's freaking bananas, dude. Freaking nuts. Yep. Unbelievable. Well, this is awesome, John. Do me a favor. Let people know where they can find you if they have questions about JCS. Like, where do you want to send them? Where can they follow you on social media? All that stuff. Go ahead, promote yourself a little bit.
So you can find JCS Marine Restoration on Instagram, Facebook as well.
Yep.
And we're in Rhode Island. Our phone number's on both socials.
Yep.
And pretty easy to find us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is the tackle shop open yet?
Not yet. Probably another week from opening
right.
the tackle shop officially.
Perfect, man.
No, we're still getting things on the wall and shelves and all that stuff.
It's a project.
Yeah. It is fun.
Well, when everything's ready to go, do me a favor. Send me over like the hours and all that stuff so I can blast it out there. So if folks that are local in the area want to pop in, even just to check it out and pick up some odds and ends, stuff like that, they'll be able to go and check it out and maybe take a look at some boats too, and talk to you. That's awesome. John, this is absolutely fantastic, man. I appreciate you, dude. I think the work you do is absolutely out of this world. I'm looking forward to the fishing expo. I think we're going to have ourselves a blast. And we'll see what we can get done over there. I think it'll be a good time.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome, dude. Do me a favor. Send me a pic of you holding just an absolute tank, and we'll use it for the artwork on the show on this episode.
All right. I'll send that right over.
Sounds like a blast. Sounds awesome, dude. You have a good one. We'll be in touch, and I will see you in where's the show now? It's not in Boxborough anymore. Marlboro. It's in Marlboro. It's in Marlboro. All right. I'll see you guys in Marlboro. We're going to have a good one. Take care, John. Thank you. See
ya.
All right. Bye-bye. What an absolute amazing program, folks. Thanks so much for checking out Jigs and Bigs. As always, we just want to take a second to say thank you very much. We appreciate all of our listeners, you folks that are out there doing your thing. And you may have noticed if you were on Spotify that there was no video portion. I made reference to potentially doing that, and it didn't work out this week simply because I never recorded the video for the interview with John from JCS Marine. So I thought it would just be a little bit messed up and cause a lot more confusion if we had just a blank black screen for that, which would have sucked. So we'll get to that for the next roundtable. That's going to be a focal point on my end to kind of make sure to get together. But that's going to be coming too. So let's talk about, before we wrap things up, let's talk about some stuff for the podcast. Like I said, we appreciate you guys. You guys are the greatest audience that a dude in his basement ranting and raving about his fishing activity could possibly ask for. And, you know, don't think for a second that we don't think about the sheer number of people that you know, we have some kind of an effect on, which baffles me. But we're asking you guys if you could do us a solid and leave a rating and review of the show. If you like what you're hearing, or if you have a suggestion for us, go over to Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review over there, but also on Spotify. I want to mention specifically on Spotify, you guys can give us a rating, a star rating over there. And it's a feature that I think a lot of people have sort of missed out on a little bit. We have been climbing, though, a bit here and there. We have a really, really fantastic rating on Spotify, 4.9 stars. And we've got 70 ratings over there. So if you've got, you want to help us out, let's see if we can hit that 5. If we can get back to that 5, we'll add a few in there. It'll be interesting. Let's go ahead. We'll wrap this sucker up, guys. Again, you're awesome. Do what you can to get out there, catch some fish. Make sure that you tag us in any of your social media posts at all. We want to kind of live vicariously through you. I'm in the process right now of getting ready for my own trip. Fingers crossed we get some fish in the boat. There's some action. Even more, I'm excited to be out camping for a couple of nights and just have some fun. And hopefully I'll have some video stuff for the YouTube channel as well. So fingers crossed that it's amazing. I'm going to be taking all kinds of footage all over the place, but let's see if we can make a story out of it. Anyway, folks, you have a wonderful week. We'll see you back here in 7 days of more Jigs and Bigs goodness. Do not go too far. And like we always say,
tits and ass, smoke some grass.